Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the MHA What If with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Deku Had Saved Mineta? All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. This video was leaked on the internet 3 hours into villain incident number 50067, code-named Black Orchid. Black Orchid was a countrywide incident where 30% of the country experienced wide-scale blackouts, supervillain prisons experienced mass breakouts, hundreds of HPSC agents and pro-heroes were simultaneously assassinated, and dozens of HPSC and Hero Association buildings were burned to the ground. The attack was initially believed to be orchestrated by 20 to 30 supervillains. The only villain to be identified so far is ex-hero Minoru Mineta, also known as Moonseed. Moonseed hijacked a news building to challenge the heroes of the 2088 UA Class 1A. The video was leaked 5 minutes after Moonseed is believed to have died while in combat with Izuku Midoriya, hero named Deku. The video contains links to files containing approximately 176 gigabytes of classified HPSC data, a video recording of Moonseed's crimes, and a collection of written and audio logs of Moonseed and conversations between him and individuals including, but not limited to villains, doctors, therapists, hostages, and reporters. Video number 001. Title: Introduction. Video length: 4 minutes 23 seconds. Video date: August 23, 2101. Location: unknown. Moonseed current age: 27. Playing video now. The video starts with an armchair facing the camera. The armchair is pushed back against a brick wall, and a fedora sits on its cushion. A fireplace can be heard crackling from the background and seems to be the main source of light for the room. 10 seconds later, Mineta Minoru walks into the room shirtless and takes a seat on the chair. He spreads his arm to show his frame to the camera and display a myriad of scars across his chest and arm. I weighed 170 pounds when I was incarcerated at the pit 9 months ago. I now weigh 120 pounds on a good day, and I'm now right-handed, he explained. His left side is missing its arm up to the shoulder. The wound looks recent and is tied with bloody bandages. It has been 3 days since my escape from execution, he continues, putting on an oversized shirt and placing the fedora on top of his head. The black material covers up the iconic orbs growing from his head. Before I go on, let me recap so you understand how I feel right now. Today is August. It is 5:30 in the morning. For almost a year, I've been in a hell they called a prison where all the other prisoners know I was an ex-hero. The guards would happily watch me bleed out while getting stabbed. He raises a finger. When I defended myself and killed one of my attackers, I was sentenced to death. Another finger rises. When I escaped death row, a hero, no, someone who I believe to be a friend, decided to do this to me. He points with 2 fingers to where his left arm would have been. And all of this was because I was framed for a crime. He rubs his face, sighing and shaking his head. Alright, now that that's been explained, I think whoever is watching this video can plainly tell that I'm upset. No, wait, I'm way past upset. Upset was melting off my shoulder in a spurt of acid. I'm effing infuriated. Mineta rises to his feet, moving in and out of frame as he paces the room. I'm hiding out in someone's house as all of Japan is getting ready to lynch me because someone spreads lies about me to cover up a secret that got my best friend killed. They buried him, and now they are burying me, and there isn't much I can do about it. He stops with his back to the camera. Sorry, I started to ramble a bit, let me get to the point. I'm a dead man sooner or later. A hero is gonna catch me and drag me kicking and screaming back to the noose, or they'll decide to kill me right there. He turns to the camera. I'm a dead man walking unless I can prove I'm innocent. Mineta walks forward, grabbing the camera and tilting it up so his face takes up the whole screen. To those who did this to me, to Denki, and whoever else, I want you to know that I will find you and take great pleasure ripping you apart. And to anyone else who tries to get in my way for any reason, I'm sorry for what you're gonna force me to do. He walks back to the chair and sits down, setting the camera on his knee and looking down on it. This will be my biography. Whether I succeed or not, I rather there be a record of my attempt so my story will be heard. Until then, this is Mineta Minoru signing off. Video N. I've been surprised by a lot of things. I've also been set off about many more things. I don't think I've been more surprised and upset than when I opened my eyes and realized that I was alive. Minute, I groaned, stumbling to my feet and tasting blood in my mouth. Izuku, if you saved me after all that, I'm gonna be effing piss. The words died in my mouth as I looked around. It was a place I thought I'd never see again, my room. My old room, my haven teach scene in nearly 20 years, and burnt to the ground room. Okay, I said, spitting blood out of my mouth as I looked around. Green bed and blankets, posters all over the walls of female heroes, and a large book collection of manga and hentai. I blinked as I surveyed a room that I hadn't seen in years. DMN illusion quirks, I complained as my eye trailed over the posters of attractive female heroes that plastered my room. It was the only way to explain how I was suddenly in my old room. Now the bigger question was who has such an illusion quirk, and how could they have hit me with it? The only hero I could think of was Kami Utsushimi, but her illusion controls sight and hearing. I walked over to my desk and picked up a MT lady figurine and rubbed it with my finger. Feels real enough, I marveled as my fingers recognized the cheap plastic. I grabbed a midnight figurine with my other arm. Whoever did this made one hell of an elusive dash. My mind ground to a halt as a thought occurred to me. I could feel with both hands, which should be impossible since one was a prosthetic. Looking down, I gave my hands a once-over. Midnight was in my left hand, warm flesh trailing across it instead of metal. I stared at my left hand for a couple seconds, trying to come to terms with it. The next and possible more terrifying thought that came to mind was that both my arms looked smaller than they should be. Looking myself up and down, I let out a little shriek as I noticed that I was smaller than I should be. Of me was. Alright, so this is a nightmare, I concluded, expecting the room to blow apart or for my mom to run in with a knife. The thought was more comforting than the idea that was currently working over in my mind. Alright, calm down. I just needed to prove it. What couldn't you do in your dreams? Speak, read, and see yourself in the mirror. Well, I've spoken out loud a couple times now, and a quick look at the foot of one of the figurines confirmed I could read. Opening my door, I sprinted to the bathroom, grabbing the knob with my left hand and feeling a mix of emotions as I felt the smooth, cold metal. I yanked open the door and turned on the light. I turned to the mirror and stared at myself. My hands trailed over a face I haven't seen in years. Beside a bleeding gash on my forehead, it was the same. Same thin eyebrows, same stupid nose, and same pitch black eyes that didn't know a DMN thing about the world. Yep, this was the face I wore when I was at UA. 3 words slipped from my mouth that perfectly demonstrated my feeling on this matter. What the F dash? Picture of written document. Date, August 24, 2101. Title, F Rain and My Life First Day Report. A light, so things haven't been going too hot. Apparently, the house where I was camping out was a cop's, who was not happy to see me. He punctuated as much by trying to have me ingest some .38 rounds. On the bad side, I had to beat a man up in his own home, take his food, money, clothing, and anything else I could fit in a duffel bag then run off. Not the most heroic thing I've done, but I didn't have much of a choice. On the plus side, I have a gun and ammo to go along with these new supplies. My time in America made me very good at shooting, and the fact that most of the villains and heroes in Japan don't have guns gives me an advantage. Next, all I need to do is find a base, find out who framed me, and find them before I'm tracked down and killed by heroes. That to-do list got hard so fast. Currently, I'm on the rooftop of some tall building in the middle of Yokohama trying to figure out where the hell to go without being caught. Apparently when I'm wearing a hat, I'm not easily recognizable. Either the loss of 40 pounds and an arm makes someone look different, or no one knows what I look like if I cover up my hair in a hat and wear sunglasses. Oh yeah, and the reason I'm writing this is because for some reason I got sentimental and decided to leave that dude his camera like an idiot. I stole a flash drive to download the video I recorded, though. All in all, beside the crippling fear of being discovered and the heavy rain, today has been pretty demon nice. I would put more down, but this pen is running out of ink. If I get the chance, I'll take a picture of this and any other written documents, 'cause I'm horrible with paper. P.S. I woke up and felt my left arm twitching. You see it in old war movies, but looking over and not seeing my arm there and yet feeling it is something I don't know how to really describe in words. End document. I don't know how long I stared at my reflection, but all I knew is that I got a great view of myself paling as I came to terms with this new development. Honestly, I didn't know I could get that pale. It clashed wonderfully with the blood drying on my forehead. I'm a kid again, I said out loud, cringing at the dim lisps my voice had. God damn it, I had been so happy when that was fixed. I'm a kid again. Okay, time to figure out how the hell this happened. First thought that came to mind was Eri, but why turn me into a kid when she could remove me from existence? She almost did it once. Mental time travel, I concluded, shaking my head at the idea. It was the only idea that made sense, though. Unless I was in some type of hell where I'd be forced to relive my life and see all of my mistakes. I was hoping it wasn't that. Alright, time travel exists. I barked out a laugh, nodding my head as I struggled to fully accept that notion. That's honestly a little terrifying. Now, what could I do with that knowledge? Figure out a way to go back? As morbidly interesting as it would be to see the fallout of my swan song. Last thing I remember in my old body was Deku's foot approaching my face, so I'm pretty sure I'm either deceased or permanently brain damaged and being carted off to whatever prison is left. Can never go back, so don't bother looking, I said out loud, staring at my reflection. Now for the big questions. What day was it? And what should I do now? The first question was solved easily enough by walking back to my room. I turned on my computer to check the date. I couldn't help but laugh as I stared at the screen. Either God is giving me a second chance, or he's effing with me. 6 a.m., April 1st, otherwise known as the first day of school in Japan. Which means in about 2 hours, students from all over will be going to UA to train to become heroes. I chuckled at the notion. It really must have been April 1st because that was a whole joke. Rubbing my forehead, a spike of pain and the sticky feeling of blood on my finger reminded me of a problem. Oh right, I'm injured. Guess I should figure out what that is. Walking back to the bathroom, I chastised myself for ignoring the blood on my face as I checked myself in the mirror. In my defense, it didn't look lethal, and I had more pressing matters to deal with. Once I was looking, it was easy to find the problem. There was a gash across my head about an inch wide. Not too deep, most likely reopened with me rubbing it. Fishing around the cut, I hissed as I felt something deep in the cut. Something was still in there. I opened a drawer and grabbed a pair of tweezers to pull out the piece of glass that was stuck in my head. I stared at the bloody piece, trying to figure out what it was and how it got in my head. Pretty sure it was a wine glass, in which case the answer was obvious. Mom must be slipping. She usually doesn't break the bottle. This raised more questions than answers, mostly because I couldn't remember ever being assaulted by my mother on the first day of school. That's possibly a major difference from my timeline, but I couldn't be sure because she hit me so many times in my childhood that I doubted I could remember every single one. Turning on the shower, I decided a full body check was in order. Confirming if this timeline is mine would be a priority. It was dangerous enough to make changes in a timeline where I knew what was going to happen. It was going to get way more messy if I had ended up in a universe where Deku was a girl or used power armor. Which brought me to the next big question. What exactly was my plan here? My final plan in my old life had been suicide by hero. If by some miracle I did manage to survive, I did have some sort of plan to change my face and move to America. That plan then got United States of Smash It out a window. Honestly, I was a bit surprised that I wasn't more upset about my death. I guess it was because I had fulfilled my purpose. With my death, I had dealt a blow to the HPSC that they would never recover from. I avenged Denki, revealed the truth, and forced everyone to live with the fact that they had helped to create a monster and hopefully learn to be better. Pretty much the happiest ending my life was gonna get. But now that I was alive and back in time, my mind was filled with so many possibilities that it was actually starting to hurt to think of them all. With my knowledge of guns and weapons, I could get a 3D printer and start arms dealing. I already saw the amount of money I could make with that in my first life. I could probably become a detective, considering that I spent years figuring out a case that was being covered up by the government. Politics? I'd be becoming what I hate, but it might allow me to make some changes. I struggled not to laugh at that lie as I moved to the next thought. Become a vigilante? I did know most of the gangs and criminal groups around Japan. I could just invest in stocks and become a millionaire without any effort, but that would take time. I could go back to America and find Jackson and explain this to him. He would totally believe in it. The idea of joining the HPSC came up, which had me reeling in shock before considering it in cold fascination. Taking control of the system I had destroyed in my last life was a dark irony. I left the shower feeling refreshed but not very enlightened. I looked at myself in the mirror again to examine the cut. Beside the part where I had pulled the glass out, it was a thin cut easily hidden by makeup or having my hairline a little bit lower. Sadly, patching myself up from my mom's actions wasn't unique enough to let me know if this was a different timeline. Haven't done this in a while. I sighed as I pulled out one of my mother's makeup kits to cover the cut when I realized what I was doing. Why was I bothering to hide this? The first thought was because I could get uncomfortable questions in class. The next was that my mom would be mad if I bled on the carpet. Both of these thoughts were thoroughly examined and then cast away with a middle finger to whatever bit of my subconscious had the ball to put them up in the first place. Ignoring the fact that I didn't even know if I was going to UA, I had to think back to the last time I had given a DMN about how those people felt about me. That idea disturbed me, but I was revolted by the fact I had spent years as a hero then a villain only to return back to a boy who had let his mother walk all over him. It was honestly frightening to see how quickly I had reverted. Might be a good idea to nip this in the bud, I muttered to myself as I got dressed. The question was how? The idea of killing my mother was surprisingly distasteful and would also be shooting myself in the foot. Ignoring morality, I didn't have the contacts to hide a body, and killing her could change a lot of stuff up. It would also add the burden of me having to handle a house at the age of 14 if I got to keep it at all. Getting her arrested would lead to the same problems and put attention on me. She was only really abusive when drunk, so if I could grit my teeth and deal with her, I could hold out till we were in the dorms, and then I would be good. If not, I'd think of something else. I snapped my finger as an idea came to me. Leaving a trail of breadcrumbs for the heroes might be the better option. It could be used to explain any odd actions or even get me some pity points, which can be useful. Abused boy decides to become a hero so he feels useful. I laughed as I looked at myself in the mirror and examined my school uniform. Bet Midnight would have loved that drama. The thought of my past teacher brought a familiar tinge of sadness followed by a rush of happiness. Midnight was alive, and I had the power to keep her that way. In fact, I had the power to change the course of the upcoming war before it even started. I spent the next hour contemplating the course of my new life while enjoying the largest breakfast I had ever had as a kid. An omelet made of 3 eggs, some rice and beef, and a tall glass of wine told me that today was going to be just fine. I went over my plans as I bit into a strip of beef. For the short term, I had decided that being a hero was the best choice. It would give me the most opportunities, and before my incarceration, it was both something I was good at and deeply enjoyed. As for the long term, I was still putting that together, but my main goal was to live a good life. I had already started, this hence the large breakfast and my mother's good wine. I let out a deep sigh as I enjoyed it. My mom was shit at a lot of things, being a mother the top of the list, but she was good at choosing wines. It only took a couple minutes to find a plus side to this small body. It didn't take a lot of alcohol to get a light buzz. As amusing as it would be to see my mom's hungover face when she sees this spread, I realized I'd have to leave soon. It wouldn't be good to be late on the first day of school. Just as I remember, it was the only thought I could think when I stared at UA. The giant H-shaped building was just as impressive as it had been in his time. Standing as a beacon of inspiration against the worst scum of Japan, at least until it had been destroyed. I wandered the school, trusting memory to take me where I needed to go. I actually learned it from Zero, who had been trying to capture me at the time and had accused me of being a part of it. I wasn't, but the media overheard him, and by the next day the media was claiming I had planned the whole thing. I wonder if the real villain that did do it was ever mad to not get credit for that. I was jolted from my thoughts as I rounded a corner and collided with something warm, soft, and smelling vaguely of strawberries. I fell on my butt and looked up to see who I had bumped into. When I saw her, my mind went blank. The R-rated hero Midnight turned to stare down at me. Are you alright? Probably better that I saw her first, I thought to myself as I stared at the hero in front of me. Get used to seeing the dead now. She was just I remembered, her skin-tight suit, waist-long hair, red mask that accentuated those sky-blue eyes. Said eyes that were now looking at me with slight concern, probably because I'd probably been staring at her for a while now. Say something, I screamed to myself as I stared God-smacked at the hero before me. Say something before she thinks you're stupid. Eyes darting around, I struggled to think of something to say before blurting out the first thing that came to mind. You smell amazing. I think my brain shut down because it took a solid 2 seconds for me to realize what I said. Midnight just raised an eyebrow, probably curious to see how I was going to stick my foot deeper into my mouth. I didn't mean that. I meant to say the view is amazing. I sputtered out, flaying my arms at a mirror that was past Midnight and down the hallway. No, I'm not good at talking to girls normally, anyone who knows me would know that. However, normally I'm not as asinine at it as I currently was, but I'd like to see you talk to a person whose funeral you attended. Midnight wasn't exactly helping. I see, she said, leaning forward with a mocking sad face. The movement did interesting things to her chest. So you're saying I don't smell nice? No. I let out a little shriek and shook my head again. I didn't say that. You smell great, perfect in fact. I nodded my head in confirmation with a thumbs up before my eyes widened. Not that I was smelling you. I wouldn't do that, I just assume you do. You seem to take care of yourself really well judging from your figure, I mean. Insert my other foot in my mouth. Not that I was looking at your figure. It was just something I noticed while admiring the view. At this point, Midnight was giggling at my stupidity, and I was cursing the fact I couldn't shut my freaking mouth. By that, I meant the view of the window, not the view of you, the view of the window over there, that view, not the you view. I mean, what other view would there be? I wasn't Lou Dash, since my mouth was getting me nowhere, I resorted to my next option. For otherwise known as F everything and run. Bye. Returning to my feet, I bowed to the R-rated hero before turning and walking away. UA is pretty tall, my mind helpfully informed me as I walked away. Pretty sure I wouldn't feel the pain if I jumped. My thoughts of self-destruction were interrupted by a manicured hand landing on my shoulder. You're Mineta Minoru from Class 1A, correct? I nodded, not trusting my mouth after that elegant display of words. You're heading the wrong way. Your class is this way, I'll take you there, Midnight said, walking ahead of me and beckoning me with a finger. I was going to say that I already knew the way, but considering this is supposed to be my first time here and I was going the other way, that wouldn't really work. Letting out a sigh, I followed the teacher. I realized 2 things as I followed her. Number 1, which I should have realized sooner, was the fact that even if I had the mind of my older self, I still had the physical brain of my 14-year-old body, which meant I still had the extreme hormonal imbalances of my younger self. Which accounted for the fact I spit verbal diarrhea when I was rattled. Number 2 was that Midnight had a really nice butt. It wasn't as good as MT Ladies, but it was still enjoyable to watch as she walked down the hall. I shook my head and tried to look anywhere but right in front of me. Sue, whoever did this can send me back in time, but they couldn't have done me the favor of unfucking my mind while they were at it. That got me thinking, if it's my mind and my 14-year-old brain, does any mental conditioning I have carry over? Any of the code phrases on me don't exist yet, so I don't have to worry about that, but I'm gonna be very sad if I can't access my mental vault. Midnight stopped and raised a hand to my forehead to stop me from running into her, which I was grateful for. Here is your classroom. I hope you remember the path, but feel free to ask me if you get lost again. Thank you, I say, nodding my head to the hero and reaching for the door. And Mineta? I looked up at the hero to see an amused grin on her face. There's nothing wrong with enjoying the view. The chest movements she did while saying that shouldn't be allowed for a teacher. But a true hero must learn to focus. We wouldn't want you to get distracted and get into trouble, now would we? I cursed the pink that traveled to my cheek and muttered something as she laughed and strutted away. All right, let's not botch any more first impressions now, shall we? I thought to myself as I grabbed the doorknob and steeled my shaking hands before opening it. As much as it's CKD saying stupid stuff to midnight, it means I'm less likely to do it now. My eyes trailed over the group in their seats as the class turned to regard me. This is the first time in years I've seen these people look at me without hatred and disgust. Not knowing what to say, I nodded to the group and walked to my seat. As I passed my classmates, I couldn't help comparing them to their standings in the future. In France, number 35, dead, number 41. Oh, and here's number I stopped and looked Katsuki Bakugo up and down. In the future, he's a terrifying thing, 6 feet 2 inches filled with muscle and power and able to stand toe-to-toe with Midoriya despite having only one quirk. He was also sort of a prick. What are you looking at? Said prick had noticed me staring and had decided to confront me about it. I flinched back in surprise before narrowing my eyes at him. I made a show of looking him up and down before snorting, which earned a glare from him. A rude child that will be humbled, I stated as I moved past him and took my seat behind him. What did you say? He replied, turning to glare at me. I said you shouldn't put your feet on the desk, I stated loudly, pointing to his legs. I agree. Like clockwork, Tenya Ida came robot walking over to confront the living bomb. I sighed as Bakugo turned his head to taunt the engine hero. I planned to live well in this school, and I remembered fearing Bakugo in my first life. Might as well as get some fun in this one taunting the explosion boy before he gets his act together. Don't put your legs on the desk. It's the first day, and you're already disrespecting the school by putting scuff on it. Bakugo let out a sarcastic hard Ida statement. You're kidding me, right? Your old school put a stick up your butt, or were you born with it? While that argument was going on, I noticed that Midoriya had entered the room and was standing by the doorway with a distraught look on his face. Looking the green-haired boy over, it was hard to imagine the god of earth he would become. Let's start over. I'm Tenya Ida from Some. Ida seemed to have decided to offer an olive branch. Bakugo, on the other hand, seemed to have decided to stab him with it. Well, aren't you an elite? Seems like I've got a reason to end you after all, Bakugo said with a sneer. You would threaten me? Your own classmate? What makes you think he wouldn't threaten you? I stated, waving at Bakugo. Dude nearly bit my head off for looking at him. Shut up, midget, the explosion boy snapped at me. Or what? You get choked out by a slime again? At Ida's confused look, I explained, I thought I recognized this kid from somewhere a couple months ago. He was the kid that slime villain was wearing who got saved by All Might. Shut up. Smoke burst from Bakugo's hands as he turned to look down on me. Oh, did I touch a nerve? Makes sense that you wouldn't want to talk about it. I made a sad face at him. Sorry. Bakugo was about to say something, probably threatening my life, when Ida noticed Midoriya's arrival, which was my cue to redirect. Hey, isn't that the kid that tried and saved you? I pointed and sure enough, the second Bakugo noticed Midoriya, he forgot all about me. I leaned back on my chair and stifled a laugh. You shouldn't antagonize him. A voice behind me killed the laugh in my throat. I didn't dare to turn my head, knowing who was behind me. I'd been trying to avoid looking at her. He shouldn't treat his classmates like trash, I stated, eyes rooted forward. True, but you provoking him doesn't help either, and getting attacked by a villain is nothing to be ashamed of. Tell you what, you get him to calm down, I'll keep my mouth shut, I growled under my breath. Day 1 and people were already defending the prick. You shouldn't decide to do the right thing only if someone else does, Momo Yaoyorozu stated. Alright, that hit a little too close to home. I waved my arm, signaling that I was done with the conversation. I focused instead on the arrival of Ochako Uraraka, and a moment later, Aizawa. The sight of such a famous hero inchworming his way to the door in that yellow sleeping bag was worth half the sea I'd gone to since coming back to this time. While the eraser hero had the class's attention, I took the chance to look behind me. Momo Yaoyorozu was taller at this age than I remember, but beside that, she was the same. Spiky ponytail, sharp intelligence eyes, and a face filled with determination. I stared at her until she noticed me. Our eyes locked, and for a moment I was worried I would chicken out. Taking a breath, I looked her dead in the eyes and said 3 words before turning to get my gym clothes. I am sorry. It had been a while since I'd said those words. There weren't a lot of things that I was apologetic for at the end. But I had to say it to this Momo because I had never gotten the chance to say it to my Momo. I'm sorry for killing you. Picture of written document. Date, August 28, 2101. Title, Game Plan. Alright, it's been 4 days since my last report. The reason I'm not doing it daily is because I don't have that much paper, and besides this FNG rain, nothing has really happened. I've mostly spent the last couple days stretching while shifting through my mental vault for any hints on who framed me. I have no doubt shit is happening somewhere, I just have no idea how to figure out what or where. I don't have a phone, so I can't check the internet, and I didn't look at the TV while in that cop's house. If I had to guess, heroes are probably working on handling the results of that earthquake. Well, calling it a simple earthquake kind of underestimates it a bit. Japan is used to earthquakes. This was more like the earth had a seizure. I wouldn't be surprised if it was quirk-assisted, but until I get my hand on a phone, I can't find more. Whatever it was, I'm happy and grateful it happened. If it wasn't for that, I would still be in prison. Scratch that, they had taken me to be hanged when that happened, so if it wasn't for the earthquake, I would be dead. In other news, I'm out of food and currently hunting the birds that nest up here, so I think it's time to get a move on. For a while, I've been struggling to figure out the first step to prove my innocence. Whatever hints were at my crime scene are probably old and gone, not to mention towns away. If I could get back to my house, I might be able to get my backup phone, which should help, but I bet they have a hero watching my home. Best chance is to take Denki's second lead and look into the HSCP, which is gonna be half past impossible. Scratch that, contacting Jackson might be a good idea. If he believes I am innocent, he might be able to help me with that. If not, then F it, I'll try to sneak into an HSCP building and find whatever I can. I could take a page out of the Bastion book and beat the CRP out of any HSCP agents I find till one knows something. Well, whatever I do, I need to do it fast because sooner or later, someone is gonna notice me on top of this building. P.S. And to whoever reading this and gets offended that I'm happy an earthquake saved my life, let me just say this, SCK my grape-colored nuts. End document. Have you ever looked back at when you were a kid and realized how effed up you were? For most people, it was crooked teeth, big foreheads, maybe asthma. If only I had those issues, I thought sourly as I followed the class outside to do the quirk apprehension test. These thoughts weren't in any way new. Even from my first life, I knew full well I was defective compared to other people. It was only when I got older that I learned how and why. A mix of terrible upbringing and crappy genetics. First, my mental issues. I think the doctor said it was a type of Asperger's syndrome, or high-functioning APD. That's what made it so difficult for me to keep my freaking mouth shut. My perversion comes from a herm problem, and that's my dad's fault. Or rather, his ancestors' fault. Basically, the same way a Shido is pink or Tokoyami has a freaking bird head, even though it doesn't have anything to do with their quirks. Still, it's why I'm a third of the size I'm supposed to be and have trouble ripping my eyes off of a decent pair of melons. Basically, my ancestor's quirk, aptly named Compact Survivor, made it so he could become smaller and smaller the longer he went without food and water. In theory, it could have kept him alive for 3 months on no food and little water, but he would be the size of a baby by the end of it, then he would return to size after a couple days of gorging. His genetics became a curse where PBRI becomes an eating competition to not be a beach but gremlin for the rest of your life. And that's on top of the additional problems of having a brain making hormones for a teen starting at PBRTY and pumping it into a body the size of an 8-year-old. Not gonna lie, I was pretty salty when Eri grew up to be taller than me. For all the reasons I hated my dad, that was by far the biggest one. Only reason I learned of it was because Jackson read my medical records and force-fed me protein shakes halfway into my 17th year. We only managed to reach 4.9, but to this day I'm grateful, because if he didn't do that, I would have lived my life at FING 3. But with this very long list of reasons for why I freaking hate my body, there was something I hadn't even thought of. While the first group of students were starting the 50-meter dash, I clenched my arm and strained to activate my full quirk. Besides an itch along my arms, nothing happened, which was disconcerting. Thinking back, I wasn't able to use grape skin until my hormones were more balanced. I growled, thinking back to what I could do at that age and disliking my arsenal. I was pretty sure there were some abilities I wouldn't gain by normal means since they were gained from quirk awakening, which would be difficult in this timeline. Did I make you mad? I whispered to the sky. Did my last life offend you so much that you had to cheat in my dinner? Next, Aizawa's voice shook me from my thoughts, and I turned to realize the hero's tired eyes were locked on me. I'll go with the next group, I stated, moving to the side to let other people pass. The last group just left. Now get ready, you're holding back the class. Looking back, I realized he was right. The rest of the class was giving me expectant looks from the other side. Sighing, I began jogging. Just as I returned to more important thoughts, something wrapped around my foot, causing me to land face first on the ground. Raising my head, I turned to look at the white cloth before glaring at the teacher controlling them. The hell was that? I was about to ask you the same thing, he said, dull eyes glaring at me before he pulled his arm. I hissed, trying to dig my feet in, but he dragged me back to the starting line. You're supposed to use your quirk to cross as fast as you can, not lightly jog. Now go again. I glared at the teacher. Maybe my quirk doesn't help me with the dash. At his raised eyebrow, I pointed to Koda. He didn't use his quirk? Yeah, but he ran as fast as he could and doesn't have a quirk that helps in mobility. He pulls his arm, causing the wrapping to somehow pull me back up to my feet before unwinding from my leg. If you're not going to give me your best here, then you should walk out right now. I don't have time to teach someone who doesn't want to be here. That earned a snort from me. All right then. Please, sir, can I have a moment to prepare so I can give you my best? I replied dryly as I put my hands together and bowed. A moment is all I need. At this, Aizawa nodded, and I dusted myself and glared at the field. All right then, if grape skin won't work, let's try compact grape. Concentrating, I plucked one of the purple orbs from my head. The one that grew in its place took 3 seconds to grow and was a slightly deeper purple. I plucked 2 more of these deeper orbs, letting out a hiss of pain as blood started to gush onto my face. I ignored it and nodded to Aizawa. At his mark, I placed one on the ground and jumped on it. I didn't realize my error until I bounced off of the orb. I assumed that since everything else was skiing with this tiny body, my quirk would be weaker as well. To be fair, I was right in a way. A V4 compact grape could send my older body soaring into the sky. I expected each orb to give me 10 to 15 meters if it worked at all. What I didn't account for was that I weighed a fraction of what I used to, and it was this body's first time using compact grape. Obviously, it had compacted too much. My foot had barely hit the orb before I was flung forward horizontally. I hardly had enough time to throw the next ball onto the ground before I had to spin midair to land correctly on it. I let out a curse as my foot landed wrong, which then sent me spiraling into the air. Don't throw up. I wrapped my arms around my head, fully expecting to smash into the ground before something thin and slimy wrapped around my waist and stopped me midair. Lowering my arms, I stared into the deadpan face of Tsuyu Azui. Are you all right? She asked. Put me down, I replied, forcing calm into my voice. If she was offended by my rudeness, she didn't show it. Wordlessly, the frog girl put me down. I dropped to my knees and struggled not to let loose the breakfast I had enjoyed. What was my time? 4.38 seconds, Aizawa answered, walking over with a grin on his stupid face. Second fastest in the class. Let this be an example to the rest of you, he said as he turned to the rest of the class. I want you all at your best, and I expect you to deliver your best for each part of this test. You are to push yourself 100%. If I see anything below that, I will expel you on the spot. If you're lazy here, how can I trust you to be on your game with a villain? His eyes trailed to me with that last sentence before he motioned the class to the next test. Wait, I was supposed to get the same score so I could get the same partner for the next test. I groaned, rising to my feet only to turn and see that Tsuyu was staring at me. What? I asked, taking a few steps away from her. You're bleeding, she said bluntly. Yep, I said as I turned to catch up with the class. Seemed as if she still wanted to talk because she kept pace with me. Are you all right? Yep. I was happy to end the conversation there, but she had saved me from eating dirt, so I muttered a thanks that she acknowledged with a nod as we got ready for the next test. With Aizawa's threat in the air, taking it easy was out of the picture, so I decided to test the limits of this body. Next test was grip strength, which was slightly annoying. Is this even good? I asked myself as I stared at the machine displaying my 39.0 kilograms. I turned to Tiu, who had her tongue around a similar machine that was displaying 240 kilograms. That doesn't tell me anything. Walking across the room, I noticed Shoji had hit 540.0 kilograms. That's CC, I muttered, watching as his 6 muscular arms flexed before blinking when I noticed he was looking at me. CUD, did I say that out loud? Yep, Hantashiro said, placing a hand on my shoulder as I sighed. Tall, dark and handsome your type? Much more than skinny and pale, I answered, knocking his hand off my shoulder and turning to face the tape-wielding hero. Hey, what was your score? 50 kilograms, he said with a grin, flexing his string bean arms. But I aimed into my hand. Is that good? What even is the grip strength for a normal human? No idea, but when I was in middle school I was around in the 40s, I think. Oh great, so I'm weaker than a middle schooler. Ciro must have seen my annoyance, because he grinned and put his hand back on my shoulder. But judging from your face, I did better than you, which means I'm good. He grinned at my frown. Name's Hantashiro, by the way. Stupid name. I knocked his hand off my shoulder again. And you don't know what I got. Maybe I was in the 70s or maybe the 80s, or maybe I'm holding back my true power. I doubt it, unless you actually want Aizawa to kick you out this time. He blinked as the class started going back outside. Come on, next test is starting. Talking to Ciro was easier than I expected. Made sense in a way. He was one of the only students from Class 1A that believed I was innocent of my accused crimes. Didn't stop him from trying to arrest me for every crime I did do, but that was fair. He also helped me keep in mind what TV shows and manga were around at the time. The next test was the standing long jump, and it served to remind me that compact grape wasn't perfect. What was supposed to be a perfect arc ended up with me launching myself into the ground and leaving an impressive skid mark. The pain increased tenfold when I looked up to catch Bakugo smirking at me. Yeah, keep laughing, a-hole, I muttered as I rose to my feet. Wait for the next one. The next test was the repeating sidestep which, just like in my last life, I got first place in. Bouncing between the 2 clusters of ball was just as nauseating as it was the first time, but I was a lot more satisfied when I grinned at Bakugo. Beat that, firecracker? Oh geez, he actually might, I thought as the class stared as Bakugo somehow exploded himself across the lines and back at high speeds. It is terrifying how much control he has at this age. Thankfully, my score was still higher, and I got to gloat for the next couple seconds. Yeah, Bakugo won this one, I said, watching Bakugo explode a ball into the air while yelling die. He had done it already as an example for Aizawa, but I guess he wanted to see if he could beat his score. What? Not gonna try and beat him on this one? Ciro asked me as I sat down on the ground and leaned back, using his leg as a backrest. He has bombs on his hands. How do I beat that? The only tests I could beat him at were long jump, which I messed up, and the repeating sidestep, which I beat everyone at. I stifled a yawn. I wanted ammunition. Ammunition? Tsuyu's dull voice startled me as she decided to join the conversation. Yep, if he gets on his high horse, I want to be able to point out that a midget half his size with an inferior quirk beat him soundly at something. Honestly, I would have liked to beat him at the long jump and dash, but this body esigdi too much. The amount of work and training I was going to need to get this body on track was going to be horribly annoying. Shouldn't you focus on your own success instead of just one-upping him? Ciro pointed out. I can do both. This isn't the first time I've thrown my entire being into doing something stupid. I watched as Achiko's ball simply floated into the sky. You'd be surprised at what a person can do if they put their all into it. What was the first time? Momo Yaoyorozu asked, causing me to stiffen. Tsuyu made me tense, which I could deal with, but Momo brought back a lot of memories and feelings that I really needed time to deal with, which made getting caught off guard by her the worst. Someone took something from me, I stated, keeping my eyes from drifting to her. Didn't get it back, but I got something from them that was more precious, so I call it even. What did you get? Momo asked as Tsuyu went to do the test. You ask a lot of questions for someone who hasn't even said their name. Apologies. She held out a hand. Momo Yayorozu. I stared at the hand for a moment before sighing and shaking it. Nice to meet you. This is Hantashiro. We already met, he said, nodding to Momo. You're the one that hasn't been talking to anyone. I've been talking to you guys. At their expressions, I sighed. I haven't seen the need to talk to anyone. Why, because last place will be expelled? Momo asked. At my stare, she sighed. Were you not listening to anything Mr. Aizawa said? Not going to lie, no. I forgot that he had put that threat out the first day of school. But if so, I'm not too worried. My eye trailed over to Tsuyu, who slung out a ball with her tongue. There was a dirty joke in there somewhere, and by God I was going to find it. Who do you think is gonna get the boot? Shiro asked. No one. At his stare, I explained. If I remember correctly, he only removes those that have no potential, and I doubt attitude matters much since Bakugo made it in. I honestly doubt his list will really be all that important. He's our teacher, Momo warned. You might get farther if you treat him with respect. Oh, I respect him as a hero, and I respect his fighting capabilities. I glanced up as the hero in question erased Midoriya's quirk as he was about to throw. It's his teaching methods I haven't decided to trust yet. Honestly, the freedom the staff and student body had was a bit of a double-edged sword, if I was being honest. I liked Aizawa in my first life. He was bad and protected us throughout the first year hell with the villains. But he also let both me and Bakugo, the most problematic students of the class, do whatever we wanted. Yeah, Bakugo got better over time, but I couldn't lie and say a lot of stuff wouldn't have happened if he had sent me to counseling earlier. It's the first day, shouldn't you wait a little before you write him off as a terrible teacher? I'll see what I can do, I said as I leaned forward so Shiro could go take his turn. When it was my turn for the ball throw, I used a compact grape to throw myself into the sky and then threw the ball at it. I got somewhere in the 400s, which was good. The next tests were toe-touching and sit-ups, both of which I did about as well as Toru did, which is to say garbage. By the time the last test, the long-distance run, was up, I was annoyed and decided it was time to make it someone else's problem. Mr. Aizawa, I cut him off before he could start the run. We're supposed to use our quirks to finish this run at the best time, correct? The teacher gave me a suspicious look. Correct, he said slowly. Alright, just making sure. I nodded and returned to my place. Aizawa watched me for a moment before giving a countdown. Go! Aizawa's voice was drowned out by the explosion Bakugo used to fling himself forward. I cursed, pulling my arm back from where I had tried to grab him. Oh well, plan B then. I dropped a compact grape on the ground, looked for the biggest of the pack, and launched myself onto him. Gah! Rikido Sato yelled as I crashed into his back. What are you doing? Hitching a ride, I stated, sticking a hairball onto his back. Now mush. Get off, he snapped, reaching back to grab me. I leaned back, easily avoiding his hands, and smacked a finger that nearly touched the hairball I was using as a perch. Careful, if you touch my ball, I'll scream. That earned a snort from Shiro, who was following behind. Is this even allowed? Sato complained, giving up on grabbing me and returning to his running. The test is long-distance running. You heard the teacher. I'm using my quirks to succeed in this test. I assume Mr. Aizawa would have ripped me off at this point if it wasn't allowed. I shrugged my shoulders and grinned as my steed passed Mina Ishido. Plus my legs are small, so running is a pain. That doesn't explain why you decided to latch on to me. Wanted Bakugo, to be honest, or Ida if I could, but I missed. I slapped his shoulder. However, does it really matter for you? I honestly doubt you even feel me with these muscles. I let out a whistle and squeezed his bicep. So do you actually bat for the other team, or are you making those comments on purpose? Shiro asked, pushing himself to keep up with the muscular student. A man can appreciate the male form without being romantically interested in them. Yes or no to the question, please. I think I just did. I patted Sato on the head. Let's go, Sato. I'm not your horse, he replied as he sped up. If I get you close to someone, will you latch onto their back? Deal. Despite Sato's best efforts, he was already leading the middle pack, and the only people ahead of him were the fast people like Bakugo and Todoroki. Once we reached the finish line, I slowly went through the process of peeling the orb off of his back, which I tossed away from the class as Aizawa walked up. Will those stain my shirt? Sato asked, trying to see where the orb had been. No, but it might leave the smell of grapes on it. That was true. For some reason, my hair did smell like grapes, something to do with the substance it gave off that stuck to everything. And that's the last test. How do you think you did? Siro asked, breathing by me. I'm thinking maybe 13th place, I mused, looking at my fellow classmates. Bit too high if I was being honest. But shoot for the stars. I was thinking 10 for me. Wanna bet on who gets higher? I blinked and looked at him. What are the stakes? Whoever gets higher wins. Loser buys winner lunch at a later date. Easier ways to ask me on a date. I grinned at his scoff and held out a hand for him to shake. You're on. I was actually pretty interested to see my ranking. In my first time, I remember myself being firmly at the bottom above Broken Finger Izuku. I'm betting Deku is the one to go home, Bakugo announced, apparently after deciding that this conversation was worth his attention. Who? Siro asked. The guy who broke his finger, I said, pointing at Midoriya, who seemed to be shaking in terror as he waited for the results. Firecracker, you're willing to bet on that? What you say, grape stain? I'm saying, are you willing to bet that Midoriya is the one that's gonna be sent home? You're damn right I will. Alright, if Deku is expelled, I'll give you $20. If he doesn't, you give me $20. Deal? You're on. I grinned, knowing the future was fun. Oh yeah, the whole expulsion thing was a lie, Aizawa deadpanned. I grinned wolfishly at Bakugo as he and the rest of the class chewed on that little bit of knowledge. It was a logical ruse to pull out your best performances, I stated, to which Aizawa nodded. Come on guys. Use your brains. Of course it was just a ruse, Momo said to Ida, Ochiko, and Izuku, who were freaking out the most. Don't be so sure, Momo, I said as the teacher walked away. He has expelled whole classes before. You knew this was gonna happen? Bakugo accused. DMN straight. Alright, let's see the chart. I want to see what I got. I hit the 15th spot this time, basically placing everyone that had been above me down one. If there were any other changes, I didn't recognize them. For now, this was the biggest difference I could remember. No way, Bakugo growled, seeing he was in 3rd place. How did those two get higher than me? Because they're better than you. I ducked to the side, dodging the explosion boy's hand. They're both recommendation students, of course they would be good. How did you know that? Momo asked, looking down at me. I panicked for a sec before thinking of an excuse. You weren't with us when we took our test. Not hard to figure out. Hey dude, which are you? Siro asked, showing me the paper, to which I pointed to my placement with a grin. Dang. You won, but I finally got your name. Mineta Minoru, is it? Oh yeah, I didn't tell you my name, did I? Amuse. Been a while since I've been called that. Both heroes and villains called me Moonseed after a while. Come on, let's see if the school is offering lunch. I'm starving. The following video shows Moonseed's escape from the Yokohama Landmark Tower where he has apparently been hiding out since his escape. The videos were taken from the hotel security cameras and the cell phones of Sho Ito, who was blogging at the time, and a Miss Macy Farmer, an American tourist who was staying at the hotel at the time with her friend Amy Carter. Video numbers 002006. Breakover. Collective video length 12 minutes 30 seconds. Video date, August 30th, 2101. Location, Yokohama Landmark Tower. Moonseed current age, 27. Video start. Video 1 starts with security camera 240 spotting a disguised Moonseed moving down the hotel stairs until he reaches the 69th floor. Enters the elevator and exits onto the bottom floor. At the same time, security camera 07 shows pro heroes Psycho Intelli and Karakoko Awada, hero names IQ and Bubble Girl, respectively. The two heroes had been holding a seminar about hero duty at the tower at the time Moonseed was spotted. The two heroes converse and mingle with the crowd in the main lobby for 3 minutes. During this time, Moonseed exits the elevator and sees the two heroes. The villain pulls his hat lower on his head and attempts to make it to the main doors. He makes it about halfway before a slightly intoxicated farmer stumbles into him and attempts to have him take photos with her and her friend. Moonseed seems to resist at first, but Farmer seems to stumble, causing both of them to fall. This attracts the attention of IQ, who goes over to see if everyone is alright. Once on her feet again, Farmer, who is at this point hanging off of Moonseed, asks IQ to take a photo with them. IQ agrees and moves to the other side of Moonseed, who is at this point trying to get Farmer off of him. A picture is taken by Farmer's friend Amy Carter, who requested to be in the next photo. A total of 6 more photos are taken until IQ is taking a picture of Farmer, Moonseed, and Carter. Before this picture can be taken, Farmer takes off Moonseed's hat and puts it on her head, which reveals his iconic orb-shaped hair. Both Moonseed and IQ go still for a moment before IQ reaches for her communicator. Moonseed retaliates by spin-kicking the hero in the head, sending her stumbling to the ground. Bubble Girl notices and goes running over to help, but Moonseed draws a pistol and fires into the ground, causing civilians to panic and run around the lobby. Moonseed then grabs Farmer and takes her hostage, placing the gun to her stomach for a moment before throwing her onto IQ. During this chaos, Farmer grabs her phone from the ground and starts recording. Moonseed runs for the door, stepping over the recovering IQ and stealing Carter's purse as he does so. The video changes to camera 03 as Moonseed exits from the front door and heads for the closest motorcycle. Once he reaches the vehicle, he points his gun at the driver, forcing them off before he gets on it and drives off. Bubble Girl, who had just reached IQ, calls for hero assistance and gives a description as IQ runs to her motorcycle and gives chase to the villain. The video changes to the footage recovered from Marcy Farmer's phone. The camera shakes for several seconds before the woman calms her nerves and turns to her friend and Bubble Girl, who was still calling for hero assistance. "Well, that was crazy, right?" Farmer asks Amy. "He stole my purse," is Amy's only reply as she glares at the door where Moonseed escaped. The sound of an approaching engine can be heard outside. The footage blurs as Bubble Girl tackles Farmer out of the way, but the camera is able to catch the front of Moonseed's stolen motorcycle as he rides back into the hotel chased by a yellow spiral of energy. From the ground, the camera follows the villain as he forces the motorcycle to do a wheelie to avoid hitting some civilians. "Badass coming through, F-move." Moonseed yells to the parting crowd as he maneuvers the motorcycle through the lobby and to the stairs. Nijire Hato, hero named Twister, lands in the hotel and gives pursuit using yellow spiral shockwaves from her hands to propel herself after the villain. Subsequent footage is from security cameras showing Twister chase Moonseed up the stairs. Twister is unable to get a clear shot due to the heavy presence of civilians. On the 40th floor, Twister finally fires a shockwave that hits Moonseed and blasts him off the motorcycle. Moonseed is sent flying off into a wall and lands on the floor, apparently unconscious. As Twister approaches, Moonseed suddenly rolls onto his back, firing his pistol and hitting Twister in the hip. As the hero stumbles back, he fires on her 3 more times, hitting her twice in the shoulder and missing once before he jumps to his feet and runs down the east hallway of the 40th floor. Twister gives chase but is heavily impaired by her injuries. Eventually, Bubble Girl catches up to Twister, who starts to perform first aid. The scene splits between 2 security cameras. The first one shows Moonseed running down the hallway. As he goes, he starts to pull off his shirt and stuffs it in his backpack. As he runs, a purple substance starts to grow from his exposed skin about half an inch thick, only leaving his face exposed. Camera 2 shows IQ along with 3 police officers waiting on a balcony on the 41st floor. IQ takes one of the officers' guns and fires twice through the window of the adjacent hallway as Moonseed runs past. Both shots hit the villain in the legs. Moonseed screams and falls. One of the officers reads off Moonseed's location as IQ yells for his surrender. Moonseed put his hand on his head, appearing to surrender before giving IQ a middle finger and throwing himself out of the broken window. The footage changes to different security cameras briefly to show Moonseed falling to the ground floor. While falling, the villain pulls a black orb from his head and places it under his feet. When the villain hits the ground floor, he lands on the orb, which sends him rocking in the air at a slight angle, sending the villain smashing through the window of the 69th floor's west hallway. Moonseed smashes into the ceiling of the hallway before bouncing off of it and seeming to get the wind knocked out of him. IQ leads the cops to staircase B. Moonseed rises to his feet and stumbles to the same staircase and heads for the roof. The scene changes to the roof of the building where Sho Ito was blogging about his stay at the tower. "And this is the Yokohama Randomakatawa," he said, grinning at the phone. "Second tallest building and fourth tallest structure in Japan." He moves to the edge to show the drop to the group. With 73 floors and at 972 feet, this place has it all. Why? Ito is interrupted by Moonseed's entry onto the roof. Ito turns his camera to show Moonseed, whose skin is covered in a thick purple substance. This is believed to be the hair covering his body manipulated by his quirk and used as a full body shield. Moonseed regards Ito for a moment before firing down the stairs and running towards the edge. He pauses to put away his firearm and throws one of his orbs downward to stick to the side of the tower about a yard down. Once it sticks, he turns to Ito, flips off the cameras, and jumps off the ledge. Ito moves to the edge and looks down, watching the villain fall till he lands on the orb and launches horizontally away from the building. The villain lands on the roof of a nearby building using another orb to launch himself from building to building until he is out of sight. Video end. Picture of written document. Date, August 30th, 2101. Title, "What a Fine Cluster F of a Morning." Currently writing this sheet on an old burger wrapper. Let me just start with F everyone I met today. F those tourists for stopping me, F Psycho for recognizing me, F Bubble Girl even though she didn't do much, and a double FU to Nijire, who for some reason decided that today was the day to fly by the Yokohama Tower. Also, F'd her for chasing me up the stairs, almost giving me a concussion, and making me waste bullets on her. Also, did I say F Psycho yet? Because F'd her again for having the cops fire squad me. Should have shot that beach in the melons is what I should have done. The only good thing that came from this is that I grabbed one of those tourist purses during the crap storm. Which means I got to see the news talk about how I attacked the tower. Because you know, a one-armed man trying to ride a motorcycle away from the number 12 pro hero is obviously malicious. Now that complaint is done, let me explain why I'm gonna FANG die. Most of you are thinking it's because I got shot a couple times, and you're sorta right. Grape skin works the same way the hair on my head works. It grows out from my body, and I can throw it at people. Using it as bulletproof armor came as a cool side effect. We learned it could do that when Jackson figured out my hair could catch a bullet. The problem is it has the same drawbacks as my head hair does, meaning that if I use it too much, I start to bleed. Still wouldn't be a problem if I hadn't just escaped from prison, lost an arm and 40 pounds, and spent days out in the rain. So in total, my quirk is not at its best, and now almost 80% of my skin is bleeding, including my head since I used a compact grape. All in all, I might die from bleeding out or worse, get an infection, so that's gonna be fun. Inventory, one backpack filled with 3 more clips and all the clothing I could fit in it. Good news, I have a FING phone and money, and Jackson taught me how to tamper with them so they can't be tracked. Bad news, I'm stuck in a gutter in Yokohama, and I've kicked the mother of all beehives that is the Hero Association. PS time to call Jackson. I don't think it can get any FING worse for me at this point. I'm gonna take that back before FANG Deku drops in. And after the test, the day was pretty much over. The class made it to the end of the seminar just in time to be told it was time to go home. We shouldn't have bothered. Freaking waste of time, I groaned as I walked out of the auditorium. Probably would have been boring anyway, Ciro said, stretching his back. Well, I got nothing else to do today. What about you? Gonna go to the nurse then? I don't know. Going home this early is a no, but I was still getting used to being in the past. Well, if you don't have anything else to do, want to hang out? Like at your house? Nah, I got nothing to do there. How about the arcade? Can't. Got no money. Actually you do, he countered, pointing at Bakugo down the hall. As a matter of fact, you're right. I grinned as I started walking over to the explosive boy. Yo, firecracker. What is it, Grape Stain? he growled as he grabbed his bag. I believe you owe me some money. You cheated. It's not cheating to know the odds are in your favor. If Deku had been useless, then he would have been expelled. You can ask Eraserhead if you don't believe me. He still looked like he wanted to throw me into a woodchipper, but to his credit, he pulled out a $20 bill and shoved it into my hands. Fine. Take it and get out of my face. And with that he walked off, probably to go yell at Midoriya more. Alright, now I got money. Meet you outside in 10 minutes? I asked as I looked over the money. Yeah, see ya then, Zero responded with a wave before walking off. Going to the arcade with a friend, I mused to myself as I went in search of the nurse's office. Already more popular than I was in my first life. Well, that's not exactly true. Me and Denki hung out a lot, and he was my best friend. We just never went to the arcade or anything like that. Most of the time, we read manga together or watched a movie. Well, that was before second year when he started officially dating Jiro, who didn't really like me for obvious reasons. Brothers before hoes only lasts until one of the brothers actually gets a hoe. I shook my head, pushing away unwanted thoughts as I walked up to Recovery Girl's room. Recovery Girl, are you in here? I asked as I opened the door. 1 second, young man, the medical hero replied. There's someone already here, she stated, pointing to Izuku Midoriya, who was marveling at his healed finger. Now, as I was saying, if you keep getting injured and use up too much of your body's energy to regenerate, you'll just end up dying anyway. I'll die anyway? Midoriya squeaked in terror. I always wondered about that. What counts as energy her quirk can use? Fit? Or just vitality? Oh, excuse me. I blinked when I realized Midoriya was looking down at me, waiting for me to move out of the way. Oh, sorry, I said, stepping to the left so he could move past. Have a nice day, Midoriya. Don't let Bakugo get on your case so much. The green-haired boy gave me a confused look before nodding and walking away. Was it too soon to talk about that? I shook my head, then turned to Recovery Girl. What seems to be the problem? She asked, looking down at me from her seat. My head is hurting from a side effect of my quirk. I also have some questions on how far the hero's healthcare goes. I extended a hand and held in a shiver as her lips extended a full freaking foot to kiss my hand. I shuddered as a wave of tiredness hit me. I couldn't tell if that meant I had been hurt more than I thought, or if my body didn't have that much energy to begin with. Now, what were your questions? How do I explain this? I clicked my tongue a couple times before continuing. I require certain supplements because of quirk genetics from my father's side. The nurse looked at me for a few moments before pulling out a binder and starting to flip through it. And what exactly would you need? She asked me, eyes still glued to the binder. Stuff with large amounts of calcium and protein. That'll increase the production of somatotropin and help the growth of my thyroid gland. I rattled off, trying to remember everything Jackson said when he explained it. I'd have to search the vault later and make sure I got everything. I might also ask for something to lower my SEC drive, but I'm pretty sure that would get fixed up with a normal size body. Well, you're well informed with what you're on, she replied as she skimmed the binder. Do you have any medical records to go with this? No, my dad told me. I lied. Really? 'Cause I'm holding your medical files and they don't say anything about your father at all. In fact, it just has unknown where his name would be. She raised an eyebrow. Something you're leaving out? You have no idea. I blinked when I realized I had said that out loud. F this body. What I meant to say is that I found my dad. He and Mom are separated and were never married, so we don't have his quirk history. Also, my mom doesn't know I know my dad. The perfect lie is the one you don't even have to tell. Can you give me your father's contact number then? At my look, she straightened her shoulder. I can't just give a student a high amount of hormones without confirming, she told me. I guess that was fair. Honestly, I hadn't talked to enough doctors to know the procedure to call her out on it. Sure. Let me just call him real quick. I bet he can send it over to you. I said, giving a smile I didn't feel. Pulling out my phone, I put in a number that the original me wouldn't know for 6 years. Thankfully, phone numbers are one of the things that are rarely changed by time travel. I let out a sigh of relief as the line started to ring, only to remember that I was calling my dad. Any feeling of relief went out the window. Hello. A gruff voice came from the phone, causing me to catch my breath. He sounded just like when I met him at the funeral. "Hey, Mr. Mineta." I stomped down the wobble in my voice and stood up straighter. "I'm Mineta Minoru. Your son with Murasaki no Jusher." The sound of the phone hanging up didn't surprise me nearly as much as it should have, but it did hurt. Recovery Girl's wide eyes confirmed that she heard it as well. "My dad was busy," I lied blatantly, rubbing an itch in my eye. "Damn it. I'll go to his house and get the paper for you to see." "Will that be enough?" "Yes, that's fine," she replied, and I hated the sympathy I could hear in her voice. "Well, if you excuse me, I'll be going then," I said, turning and marching out of the room. As I walked down the stairs, it actually assured me that this was a good thing. In the past, I never really got to settle things with dear old Dad, since I only really learned about him in America. Now we could have a real heart-to-heart, some true NTMT father-son bonding time. // It was probably a relapse that my first thought when it came to my father was murder, but it's literally been a long day surrounded by people that had been trying to kill or arrest me for a decade. At this point, I deserved to be allowed to dream about it. I already thought of how to do it. Blow darts were easy to make, and Japan had a couple venomous snakes. The hardest part would be getting to him. "Dude, where have you been?" Ciro asked, shaking me from my thoughts. "Oh yeah, we were going to the arcade." "Something happened with the nurse?" "She wanted me to stay behind a little longer to make sure I was fine," I said. "Hey man, something came up, I'm no dash." My words died in my throat as I noticed the two people behind Ciro. "Oh, this is Eijiro Kirishima and Denki Kaminari." I asked if they wanted to join as well. He motioned to the two before frowning at me. "Is that a problem?" No. I shook my head to clear my thoughts before turning to the two boys. "Mineta Minoru, nice to meet ya." "Nice to meet you as well," Eijiro said, crushing my hand in his grip and pumping it. I tried to match his intensity but again, stupidly weak body. When he released my hand, I shook it before holding it out to Denki for a fist bump. He grinned and completed the fist bump, raising an eyebrow as I pulled it back and made half of a hand sign. "Sorry," I started, realizing what I was doing. Secret handshake I used to do with a friend. "Guess it's instinct?" "It looked cool," he said, looking at my hand and trying to mimic it. "Teach it to me sometime?" Sure. "All right now, let's get a move on," Eijiro said, pointing off into the distance. "Fun awaits." "Actually, something came up, so I dash." "Come on," Denki cut me off, patting me on the shoulder. "You can't keep us waiting and then flake out. We're classmates, we might as well get to know each other." "Yeah, all right." I nodded as Denki pushed me forward to catch up with the other two. The next 10 minutes were a rather quiet walk to the bus station where I stayed behind the rest of the group, continuing my own thoughts while they talked about the current anime. This worked pretty well, since I had a metric F-ton of sheet to think about. Mainly how to get my broke butt to the Hiroshima prefecture before Dad decided it was time to leave the country. We made it onto the bus, and the close proximity reminded Denki that I was there. What followed was awkward silence as he started to ask me about myself and what I liked, and I scrambled to try and remember what media was around at this time. After I mentioned the sequel to One Piece being cancelled and he looked at me like I was crazy, I decided that one-word responses would have to serve for now. I would have loved to just go into my head and focus on more important things like trying to figure out how to ambush my dad, but Denki seemed determined to drag me into the conversation, and DMN it. I couldn't ignore him. "Where are you from?" Denki asked. "The Kanagawa Prefecture." "What school did you go to?" "Numama Junior High School." "Haven't heard of it, what was it like?" The image of being smashed headfirst into a locker briefly flashed through my head, then the image of nearly being drowned in a toilet. "Lovely. Any cute girls there?" "Not the guy to ask, Denki," Ciro said, disengaging from whatever manga he was talking to Eijiro about. "So you're just assuming I'm gay now?" I turned to regard the lanky boy. "You know the saying about assuming, right? Am I wrong?" "Indeed you are. Even gay people can still find the other SEC appealing or nice to look at. That's not what I'm dash." Now that I think about it, I cut Ciro off. "Do any of you guys stay in touch with anyone from your old schools?" "Of course," Denki said, while Ciro nodded in agreement. "Ishido went to my school," Kirishima replied. Alright, a Shido in my life again, Stash. The pink hottie? Look it. What's she like? Denki exclaimed. Cheerful, social, little bit invasive, smart, and dash, I strangled the scoff coming from my mouth, turning it into a cough, which earned a confused look from Kirishima. What? Nothing, I waved a hand before hitting my chest a couple times. Frog stuck in my throat? Didn't know you and so you were that close. Denki chuckled, earning a punch in the knee from me. Midoriya and I live semi-close, but besides that, I don't think anyone knows each other. Wait no, Ida and Ojiro both lived in Tokyo, so they might know each other. At least I think I heard them talking about that. I added the second part, remembering that I shouldn't know where all my classmates lived on day one. Do you know Bakugo? Zero asked. Haven't seen him before today, why you ask? You seem to not get along with him. By that logic, so does Ida. We've known Ida for a day, and we already know that he's a little strict, Kirishima pointed out. You seem to be sick of him right off the bat. He seems like the type of person that needs to be humbled. He seems like a manly man, Kirishima said. You would think that. And anyway, before you guys start on with the "you should give him a chance" speech, Momo already did it. I crossed my arms. If he gets off the high horse, I'll keep the bickering to a min. Because Momo asked you to? Denki asked with a grin on his face. No. I shook my head. I can tell you're lying, he replied in a sing-song voice, which worried me, because I actually had been. You've known me for a day, how can you tell? He shrugged at my question. I don't know, I can just tell. Wasn't sure if I should be impressed or worried that he was able to understand me half an hour into meeting me. Hey, this is our stop. Ciro pointed out a window and pulled the cord, asking the bus to stop. Once we were off the bus, it was a 40-minute walk to the arcade. Let me start by saying that the first arcade I ever went to was in America. Mom didn't give me money, and the money I did manage went to manga and games I could take home. Because of that, my first sight of an arcade was a small relic of a building with some old racing games. So yeah, my expectations were low. Even so, what I wasn't expecting was a multi-story building with an inside Ferris wheel. $20 will get us here? I asked, eyes wide as they roamed the interior. It was easier to say what games this place didn't seem to have. I also spied a shopping mall and fair rides. Actually, it's 10, though it's only for this week, Ciro replied, showing his student ID to the lady at the front desk. The towns closest to the hero schools usually do deals like this for students on certain days. Really? That's so manly, Kirishima exclaimed, showing his card as well. I see some American games too. Is that a virtual shooting range? Hey, this place have a ticket system? I think so. As soon as Ciro said that, I flashed my card to the lady and started to make my way to the range. Careful, it's hard. You're gonna waste all your money on one game. Actually, I'm wasting your money. You're paying, remember? I chuckled as I grabbed the gun handle from its stand and put the goggles on. Handle feel decent enough, though it's a little too light for my taste. I grinned as holographic figures started to appear on my display. As fun as this could be, this wasn't time to play. This was a perfect chance to see how much my skill with firearms has been passed over to this stupid body. Oh my god, I see. I growled, covering my face with my hands. You got the 7th highest score, how is that skiing? Ciro exclaimed, pointing to the amount of tickets in my hand. Because everyone else that played that game probably never held a gun in their life before. ING was expecting recoil as well. My fault for expecting a game to have realistic physics. Honestly, if they hadn't pulled me from that machine to try other rides, games, and to eat, I would have stayed there till it was closing time. Honestly, I was planning to come back later and beat the number 1 score. You've fired guns before? Denki asked, eating the beach of all-American food known as cotton candy. I've never even seen one that wasn't with a cop. How you manage that? Yeah, Minoru, who can't keep his effing mouth shut. How did you manage to fire a gun at 14 in the nation of Japan? Shooting range. My grandpa has someone there that let me go try one. Not a total lie. Jackson did know my grandpa and had taught me how to shoot at a shooting range. Just not in Japan, and if Gramps had known who Jackson was, he would have put a bullet in his head. That's awesome, Kirishima exclaimed, holding a red riot action figure under his arm. What's it like firing a real gun? Terrifying at first, then a sort of invigorating feeling. I clenched my hand and remembered the Glock 18 that had been my first. Anyway, Kaminari, I didn't know you could dance so well. I used to play those games all the time. It's one of my favorites, Denki said. Hey Zero, where's the prize deck? I want to see what I can buy. Over there across from the hook machines. Denki went running off in the direction Zero pointed. When he was out of sight, he turned to me. How much money you got left? I checked my pocket. 12 for the shooting range and 8 for food, got 2 left. My eyes trailed to the hook machines. Anything good in those? Yeah, the tech ones have phones and tablets and all that. Winner, chicken dinner, I stated, turning and walking to the machine. What? Kirishima asked as he and Zero followed. American phrase, I said, looking over the row of 4 machines. 2 2-claw and 1 3-claw and 4-claw. I instantly disregarded the 4 and 2 claws as being too hard and focused on the third one to see if there was anything I knew I could win. Don't bother, man, these games are rigged, Kirishima said, shaking his head as I put a coin in the machine. Watch them, sir. I grinned as I moved my hands around, testing the hook's response time. Honestly, these were one of the easy ways to get phones and other electronics on the down low. Of course, breaking the machine was easier, but winning them honestly was satisfying too. No way, Zero said, watching with wide eyes as the hook latched onto a phone case with relative ease. Never underestimate me. I grinned as the phone moved over to the drop box, only for it to suddenly drop from the hook before it reached the target. What? Told you it was rigged, Kirishima said, patting me on the shoulder. Bet your $5 I'll get the next one, I offered, already putting the next coin in. Don't do it, Zero warned. You're on, Kirishima replied, ignoring a groan from Zero. With a grin on my face, I moved to grab the joystick for a couple of seconds, then pushed it up 3 times, then down 3 times. What are you doing? Kirishima asked. Holding up a hand to stall him, I toggled it left, right, up and down. Pressed the button that makes the crane rise and fall 3 times and then finished by putting a quarter in. Is that a good luck charm? Zero asked, watching as I moved the control to a game console. Yeah, I do it when I need to win, I said with a grin, watching it grab the box. Claw machines have a maintenance mode for workers to test it. Basically a free win when it's on that mode. I wouldn't have used it, but I believe the game might be rigged with how the claw randomly loosened when I got close to winning. And that $5, I exclaimed as the box fell perfectly into the hole. Damn it, Kirishima growls, handing me the money. You got to know the game, I said, looking around to see if any employee was coming to investigate yet. Honestly, it depended on how often the code was put in. In some cases, they might not even notice. Well, while I'm here, might as well see how many I can win. I handed my tickets to Kirishima. Hey dude, can you go see if the ticket desk has any bags or backpacks? If they do, get 2, and fill one up with as many drinks and snacks that can fit in it, and keep the rest of the tickets? Sweet. With a nod, he left and I turned to look at Zero. Can you get me mochi? I'll pay you back later. Sure. Once he was far enough, I put the code in again and sent that hook to grab the phone and ran to do the same thing to the other claws. One of my favorite acronyms of FIB, flamboyant, enjoyment, achieving revenue. Antis Zero. Hey guys, over here. I waved my hand to bring Kirishima and Kaminari's attention to where I was sitting. Where's Mineta? Kaminari asked, sitting by me at the table. Last time I saw him, he was about to raise hell on the claw machine. Dude hustled me out of $5, Kirishima muttered as he joined us. So what do you guys think of him? Kaminari shrugged. He's a little quiet and a bit snarky, but he seems like a good dude. I nodded along. He also has a crush on you? Kaminari paused at my words and slowly turned to look at me. What? Yeah, I'm 99% sure he does. He was staring at you all throughout the bus ride and really only talked to you. I'm pretty sure he was trying to be polite. He didn't seem to even want to talk to me. Obviously because he was shy. And remember, he wasn't even going to come before you said something. The second he saw you were coming, he followed us along. That doesn't mean anything, Kaminari exclaimed, shaking his head. Besides, we don't even know if he's gay. My best guess is that he's flamboyant straight or possibly bi, Kirishima said. Let's have Denki ask him, I offered. You can apparently tell if he's lying, and he seemed to be the most open with you. Kaminari scratched the back of his neck. I'd rather not put him on the spot like that. He might be redirecting because something happened. Pretty sure he is doing it to mildly screw with me. Possibly. He's coming, Kirishima stated, pointing at the purple teen running in our direction. Hey Mineta, over here. I waved my arm to get his attention but didn't have to bother. The grape-haired boy was already running toward the group holding a large collection of boxes in front of him, even having some of them stuck to his hair. How many did you win? Kaminari asked in shock. He was hustling me. Kirishima explained. Hey guys, who wants phones? Mineta asked as he screeched to a halt in front of us. Pick a phone, any phone. I looked at the time and realized that I had to get going right now. Yeah, it's getting pretty late for me as well. Kaminari checked his phone before his eyes trailed back to the pile of prizes. I'll take an iPad X2, if you don't mind. Nah, go ahead, everyone take one. Just leave the laptop, I only won one. Mineta didn't even seem to be paying attention to them. He was looking around for something or someone. Zero machi please. He opened his mouth and leaned towards me, saying ah and waiting. This isn't what straight people do, I muttered as I placed the food in his mouth and pulled my fingers back as his tongue wrapped around the treat and pulled it in. Sure is now, he said, liking his lips. Now let's hurry up, I need to go. Well, if you two are going, then I'm going as well. We got class tomorrow and need to get our sleep, Kirishima said, looking at the new phone that he had taken from the pile. All right then, let's go, Mineta said, mouth still full of machi as he zipped up his two new backpacks. Race you to the exit? With that, the purple-head boy moved at a speed that surprised me. Now he wants to run, I muttered as I watched his pint size barely miss an employee that had been walking in our direction. All right, let's catch up to him before he leaves us behind. Text document. Date, September 7th, 2101. Title, Things are finally looking up. Today CKS so much. 40% of my skin is FING inflamed, and the FING number 3 hero Todoroki said he would come down and catch the escaped convicts in Yokoyama. Considering I'm pretty sure I'm the only one that got warped here, then what Todoroki really meant was Mineta. I'm salty you beat Momo's fine but during your escape, so now I'm gonna take 5 minutes of my sweet time to beat your butt and turn you into grape yogurt. Considering I couldn't fight him with both arms and 40 pounds of muscle mass, combat is AF no. Now let me give you a simple explanation of my plan. Survive? My skin is infected, and it's itchy as hell and turning yellow. Soon it's gonna start leaking pus. My mental and physical health directly affects my quirk. If I get any worse, my quirk will be useless, also, I'll probably die. Now normally I would just rob a drag store, but the problem with a large-scale skin infection is that you don't want to move much. Also, heroes have been on alert since my attack. Every couple of minutes, I see them run past my dumpster, so yeah, robbing a store is not gonna work. So I thought of something a little more subtle. It was around 9:30 p.m. when I found my targets, a man and a woman coming from the movies, chatting and laughing about whatever show they were watching. Ugh, that now has me thinking about what movies and shows I missed while in jail. Ugh, so many shows to catch up on. Anyways, I watched the couple walk into the movies earlier in the day and decided to wait under their car till they came out. Off topic a bit, but one of those two has to be making money, 'cause their car is nice, one of those models you would see in Tokyo Drift. Anyway, when the man opens the door for his lady like a gentleman, I decide it's time to make myself known. Don't move, I growl at the man, pointing my pistol at him. The confusion on his face from seeing a man crawl out from under his car is overcome by surprise at the sight of my gun. The one thing I love about guns is no matter how FING stupid you look crawling out from under a car, no one gonna say shit because you have a gun, unless their quirk is better than a gun, but that's still a strek. Sorry to ruin your night, but I'm gonna need you to Uber me. Don't do anything stupid, and we can split ways peacefully. Thankfully, he doesn't try anything and unlocks the door. He grunts when I motion for him to open the back door for me. Hi. I wave my pistol at the girl in the car as a way of greeting. Unsurprisingly, this didn't put her at ease. "Where to?" the man asks, eyes locked on me from the rear-view mirror. "First, let me see your license." "You tooms?" At her glare, I raise an eyebrow and motion with my gun. Once they hand them over, I tell the man to go to the closest supermarket. As the car starts to move, I look over their licenses. Something Jackson taught me was that most countries have some type of quirk marking system on their license, so if cops or heroes have to arrest someone, they know what they're getting into. Clear mind, I muse, looking at Akira Kaito. This is probably one of the best non-combat quirks I've heard of. Yep. I'm a deep-sea engineer, so you can imagine the power to never freak out can come in handy. Really? Well, I'm an engineer of all trades. And you have heat sensing? I look to the woman, whose name was Sakura. Violet eyes glaring back at me are her only response. Not much of a talker, is she? Might be because you've taken us hostage, Akira offers. True. So does your quirk just make you calm, or are you panicking in your head but your body remains calm? I can still get an adrenaline rush and have the fight and flight response. I guess you could say it helps me process stuff faster, like when you first showed up. I was shocked, but once you gave orders, I came to realize you weren't gonna kill us. Oh, why is that? Simple. If you wanted to kill us, you would have done it already, or wanted to take us somewhere where there are less people. A mall doesn't fit that. Smart. I nod. You're probably the best hostages I've ever taken. Do you take a lot of hostages? No, you're the first, but when I was training to be a hero, we did practice and there was always at least one screaming hostage. Oh, you mean the one that's always crying and screaming in the movies? Yep. You ever meet one in Ari? Wait, you were a hero? Yes, though I became an international hero before coming back to Japan to get my hero license in Japan. How do you get an international hero license? Akira. Sakura hisses, apparently annoyed that her husband was casually talking to a criminal. Can you perhaps not fraternize with a monster? It's probably better for both our health if I make sure he likes us, Sakura, is his response. I am loving this guy. And we are here, he states as he parks far away from the store. Alright, pull out your phone cause I'm gonna need to give you a list of stuff to buy. Wait, I thought you said you just needed a ride? Sakura hisses. I said I need an Uber. Uber people go to the store to buy people stuff as well. I grin at her growl before turning back to the man. Alright, basically, grab the biggest bags you can get, camp gear, antibiotics, medkit, 2 good survival knives, camp foods, and an electric bike if they have one. The two stare at me for a moment. Anything else? Akira asks dryly. Yes, the most alcoholic drink you can buy. I nod my head. Sakura glares at her husband, probably mad that he gave me the idea. Let's just get this over with. No, you stay in the car. I nod to Sakura. I need one of you as a hostage, and you seem like the kind of person to do something stupid. Excuse me? Akira, please explain why you won't be telling the heroes that there is a criminal in your car while you're in the store? Because I won't be putting my wife's life at risk, he states. Man, I love this dude. Bringing a hero into this will most likely get Sakura shot, unless I get lucky and find a high-ranking one. Safer to just lose the money and get out of this alive. I nod, smiling at my hostage. Figures after so much shit going wrong, I finally get a break. Sakura glares at me before returning to her seat while Akira leaves to go into the store. I'm perfectly willing to stay quiet while we wait. Honestly, the seat of this car is feeling heavenly on my cracking skin. But sadly it seems like Sakura decides she has something to say. They should have killed you. If you mean the government, then they tried. I was hanging from the noose when the earthquake hit. By the way, what was that? That couldn't have been natural. It was some type of Nomu giant sandworm. It took 7 heroes and Deku to take it down. I whistle at that. Must have been something if Deku couldn't. You'd think after Kyudai Garaki's arrest, Nomu would stop showing up, but once in a while one of his old labs gets discovered or some new villain figures out how to make one. Other countries got mad at Japan for not handling this problem sooner, since there have been reports of other nations' villains figuring out how to make Nomu. At this point, it wouldn't surprise me if the recipe has been leaked on the dark web, mostly because Jackson once brought in a high-end Nomu to fight the higher-rank agents. Where'd it happen and how bad was it? Don't remember what town, but it was bad enough, she says, turning on the car radio to signal the conversation is done. I lean back, enjoying the cool seat while glancing out the window to make sure everything is normal. Honestly, I would have pulled out my phone, but I bet Sakura would make a grab for my gun, and she seems like the type to take the law into her own hands. What has the news been saying about the prison break? I ask after a couple minutes. Same yada yada. Not a huge number of prisoners actually escaped. A lot fell down that giant crack the Nomu made or got crushed by rocks. It was pretty much a half rescue, half recapture mission. Was the Nomu sent to actually break people out, or was it just a coincidence? I'm betting the former, since almost no one got out. Either that, or they trusted that the person they wanted to get out would be skilled enough to make it work. So who did get away? Don't know them all, but a couple of big names. Only one I can really remember is Spinner of the League of Villains. I laugh at that. Spinner had been, not a friend in prison, but he made sure no one tried to stab me in the shower when he showed up. Of course you would be happy he got away. You're birds of a feather. Well, I guess you're worse. How are me and Spinner the same? Wait, how am I worse than Spinner? He killed heroes and joined the League of Villains. You're a hero killer as well. At least he only killed his victims. That got my undivided attention. The only reason I know some of what crimes I was framed for was because of the TV in the mess halls of the prison. I barely got to watch the thing because every prisoner there wanted a piece of me, and I wasn't willing to get shived for answers. What did you say? You heard me. What did they say I did to my victims? What? Do you get off on people saying your sins out loud? I take a deep breath and remind myself that she had no reason to trust me. No, I never got to hear my crimes. I was arrested and never given a trial. Now explain. I tap my gun against the window. She stares at me, deciding whether or not I'm screwing with her before pulling out her phone and typing on it, tilting it so I could see what she's typing. Good Ivy Lord, I say as I see the news reports. Leaks? Wait, these are all leaks? Apparently they were leaked to the news station a couple weeks after your arrest and are now being brought back up because of your escape. Before that, the only official news was that you killed a hero. Well, shit, this isn't good. It would be hard enough to prove my innocence if it was a normal murder. RP, desecration of a corpse, torture, premeditated assault. That's not even the whole list, but those are just the big crimes. God, even if I prove my innocence, even being accused of some of these crimes is going to make it hard to ever be a hero again. And annoyingly enough, the government keeps its nose clean by saying that they're just rumors that are leaked by an unknown source then thrown to the news. Sweet Christ. I want to rub my forehead, but I currently have a gun in my hand. They're not even saying what hero I killed. If they're going to frame me, least they could do is show the victim. A glob of spit hits my cheek, surprising the hell out of me. I didn't even notice that Sakura turned so she could glare at me. Are you too much of a coward to even admit your own crimes? She hisses at me. Are you gonna claim insanity next? Well, you've decided that I'm already guilty, I say, wiping the spit off my face with my shoulder. Tell me, why do you believe I did it? Anyone that knows your history would know you did it. Other heroes had interviews talking about you after your arrest, she says, looking like she wants to spit on me again. The look I gave her made her think better. They all talked about what you did when you went to UA, and what you did to get kicked out. So, FNG being a perv in my first years of high school doesn't instantly mean I'm capable of the Ted Bundy crime checklist. I take a moment to calm myself. She has no idea who I am. She only knows half the story, it's not her fault. Alright, first I didn't get kicked out. I left myself. Her scoff says what she thought of that. Second, that was more than a decade ago. A decade of hero work around the world and right here in Japan, doesn't that amount to anything? Don't people change? Yes, people change, but you're not a person, Mineta, you're an insect. A bug, a worthless stain on this earth that shouldn't have been born. I level the gun to her forehead, stopping her before she could start ranting. I'm not gonna shoot her, but better to stop her before she says something that does PSS me off. You're talking mad shit for someone in bullet-eating range. She glares at me in defiance. You don't know me, Sakura. We've never met, you've never walked even a tenth of a mile in my shoes. All you know are stories told by people who barely knew me better than you do. People are talking about a kid they knew in high school. The only person that actually knew me in this DMN country is dead, and I will avenge him. I launch myself forward. She doesn't even get a chance to scream before I'm in front of her, crouching on the car's center console and looming over her. My healing skin protests, but I could care less. I lean in so close that our noses are almost touching. If I was a tenth of the things people like you called me in this world, you wouldn't be leaving this car alive, and if you did, you would be traumatized. How do you think Dabi or Shigaraki would take your disrespect? She shudders at the image and I nod along. You want to know an inkling of who or what I am? Look up Rin Hatru. She probably knows me the best in this country now that Deki is gone. I lean backward, falling back into the back seat with a hiss of pain. DMN, I should have asked Akari to get some cigars. I am a person, I state slowly. I laugh when I'm happy, I cry when I'm sad, I feel the same way you do. Sakura stared at me, violet eyes staring into black pits. After a moment, she averts her gaze and turns back around to face the front of the car. It's another 20 minutes before Akira comes back with a shopping cart full of supplies and an expensive-looking bike. Added a giant basket to the bike so you could hold this stuff, he says as he sets it up. So, Akira, you are the best hostage ever. I could kiss you right now, I say as I look at the supplies. All right, put that all in the bike and I'll let you go. As Akira works, I look at Sakura through the mirror. I don't know how I can prove to you I'm innocent, but I can at least prove that I keep my word. She doesn't look at me as I exit the car. And that should do it. He steps away from the bike, allowing me to get closer to it. I give a once-over to the electric engine, flashlight, GPS, even some kind of attachment so it's easy for people with disabilities to ride. It has it all. God, if I ever have to take a hostage again, I hope it's you, Akira. I don't. In fact, dude, give me your phone. You better not be giving me your number. I will not be your getaway driver or anything. That earns a laugh from me. No, nothing like that. Just start recording. Akira raises an eyebrow but does so and gives me a thumbs up when he is ready. Hello. I'm Mineta Minoru, and I've taken this couple hostage. I motion to the camera and then to the car where Sakura is staring wide-eyed. I had them at gunpoint and forced them to buy me stuff. If you're wondering why I'm having them make a video of this crime, it is simple. Momo, Todoroki, and Ida are all wealthy as hell, and I know that one of them will pay this couple back. I point my gun at Sakura. They will also pay for her phone, since I don't trust her to not call the cops the second I'm gone. This isn't convincing me that you're a good person, she mutters as she gets out of the car and throws me her phone, taking it out of the case before she does so. I let it bounce off my chest, briefly wondering if she was expecting me to drop the gun to catch it. I kick the phone until it's against a curb and then proceed to stomp it. Akira, keep recording but throw your phone as far as you can. Don't break it, but I want a head start before you go calling the cops. Akira looks around before spotting a set of bushes a distance away. He throws it and actually makes it. Good throw. And now before I go, hoping neither of them rush me, I bow to the couple and stifle a hiss as my back skin stretches. Thank you for your help. I promise that when I prove my innocence, I will pay you back for your deeds. Straightening up with a hiss, I get on the bike and ride off, waving without turning back. Doc and bye guys, see you tomorrow. I waved goodbye to my friends, classmates, associates, the guys. Let's stick with the guys for now. I waved goodbye to the guys. They waved back from the train as it started to pull away. Thinking back on it, I didn't realize how far the students from 1A lived from each other. Some were 2 to 4 prefectures away. It never seemed odd to me until I went to the States where the dorm system we adopted was the norm, since they couldn't really have students crossing state lines every time they wanted to go to school or home. Speaking of traveling vast distances, the idea of going to my father's house was becoming less and less appealing, mostly because if anything went wrong, I'd be trapped in that prefecture until the train opened the next day. Dad had apparently blocked my number, so that was already putting a damper on my good mood. This SOB really blocked me? For the love of hey. Excuse me miss, Can I use your phone? The lady that was walking past me stopped and regarded me before nodding and handing it over. I typed my father's phone number and called him. Hello. Samaire Mineta, I stated calmly, daring him to hang up on me again. Or should I call her Samaire Sato? I'm not sure if you're still using your family name or not. How is my sister doing, by the way? I never get to see her. How do you know that name? The coldness of my father's voice annoyed me to no end. I guessed I should congratulate him for caring for his daughter, but where was any of that care when it came to me? Same way I know she goes to Hiroshima Middle School, which is only 3 miles west of your house. I can pick up my stepmom if you still don't believe I know where you live. Don't you dare touch her, my father boomed from the phone, causing me to flinch away. How do you know about her? I applauded him for having thought of such a big question. He left when I was around 5 or 6, so I shouldn't even remember his face at this point, let alone know enough to find him half the country away. We can answer that later. For now, all you need to know is that your father doesn't know, but that can change. If you hang up on me ever again or make me jump through hoops to freaking talk to you, Grandpa will be on your doorstep in 5 minutes. I could hear my dad grinding his teeth through the phone. What do you want? Oh, I want a lot, Dad, more than you can imagine, and much more than you can ever hope to give. What I want from you for now are your medical records and a $200 allowance. Send them to the email I'll be sending you in a couple minutes. Also unblock my number, obviously. I'm about to hang up now, but before you do, I'll leave you a warning and a question you can think of. Go on. The venom in my father's voice makes the humiliation at the nurse's office worth it. Call me petty, but I love getting back at people. Hell, I literally died doing it in my first life. First, the warning obviously. Don't try to run, it's useless. I have your home under watch, and you can guess what will happen if you try to run. I waited to hear a grunt of acknowledgement next. Do you want your father to pay? What did you say? My father tried to mask it, but the surprise in his voice couldn't be masked. I bet he had assumed that I probably worked for Grandpa. Honestly, this was a shot in the dark, but if he was anything like me, then I knew he was thirsty for revenge. Father. Pay? I repeated to hammer the notion into his head. I leave you to think on that. I hung up the phone and passed it back to the lady who was giving me a confused look. Thank you, I nodded to her and walked off, leaving her to try and piece together that conversation. It was a short walk home. It honestly took me longer because of the 3 bags I was carrying. Struggling under the weight, I let out a sigh of relief when I reached my home. It was okay for lower middle class, 1 story tall and medium-sized. Decent place to raise a family. Shaking away bitter thoughts, I let out a sigh and pushed open the door. Kitchen now. My mom's voice was just as I remembered it, soft as silk but dripping with venom. A cord of fear wrapped itself around my throat before I remembered who the hell I was and strangled it. A fine hello to you as well, I said dryly as I walked into the kitchen and grabbed a pencil from my backpack as a weapon just in case. Murasakino Jusher was sitting at the dinner table and eating unagi with chopsticks with one hand while reading a book with the other. I took the time to look her over. One of the most annoying things about my mom was that she was absurdly hot. And I mean that in a why didn't I get any of those genes way, not in an NCST way. Pink eyes, heart-shaped face, and to top it off, a perfect hourglass figure. Honestly, the only thing I got from her was her hair color, though her hair was a type of thick liquid glue that wobbled slightly as if it was alive. She didn't acknowledge me when I took a seat on the other side of the table. She simply popped another piece of onagi into her mouth. Not in the mood for her games, I opened my bag and started to sort out what goodies I had gotten. Are these phones up to date? I asked myself as I started taking them out of the boxes. I was sort of disappointed that I could figure them out so quickly, considering I was using versions of them 30 years older than what I was used to. The stagnation of technology after the arrival of quirks really made itself known at this point, as well as technology focused on Heroes Tech. Though this is a way to make some money, I thought to myself, comparing a phone to its 30-year counterpart in my head. Pulled apart enough of the newer models to possibly reverse engineer something. Pulling up my current phone, I went online to check its specs when I guess Mom got tired of waiting for me to PSS myself in fear. I'm upset, boy. She said it as if she expected the words themselves to come from her mouth and kill me. Do you know why? I raised an eyebrow, deciding to rock the boat a little. No idea. Think harder, she stated, pouring herself a glass of wine. I had a big breakfast? No, you wasted food. That got raised an eyebrow. I cleared my plate. You wasted food on yourself, she explained, taking a leisurely sip on her wine. That breakfast was worth 6 of your normal meals. God damn it, forgot how little I eat. I could only stare at my mom. This is the kind of talk you expected from Ochako's family. My mom owned a salon chain. Only reason we were in this house is because of nostalgia. We're no momos, but we had money. We can afford it, I said slowly because it was obvious. Also, it was the first day of school. I went back to fiddle with my new phones. Boy needs energy to do his tests. It's not about affording it, she said, turning back to her food. It's about you wasting it on yourself. Eating food to prepare for school is a waste? When it's you. When it's you going to UA. Doubly so. What do you mean by that? I asked, standing up and taking a wine glass. You can't be a hero. You have too much of your grandfather's in you. She looked me up and down, pink eyes looking me over and finding me wanting. I expect you to be out of that school in a week, maybe 2. Because I'll get expelled? I asked. Because you'll quit, she corrected. I trust the school system a little bit more than I trust the government. I could see you making it thought the year at UA, maybe 2 if you had the will to and didn't do anything stupid. She's not wrong, I thought to myself, thinking back. For all my perversion, UA hadn't even gotten close to throwing me out till the false accusation. Whether that was a mix of me mostly hiding my bigger crimes or the girls not telling the teacher, the fact remains that I was the one that left UA. Fair enough, I conceded the point, nodding my head to her while filling my glass. Maybe even less time than that, since you seem to be getting dumber. Why do you believe that? Because you are now wasting my wine on your worthless self. Her hair seemed to rise up, shaping itself into a gooey snake that soundlessly hissed at me from the top of her head. What if I was able to prove my worth? I asked lightly, sipping the wine and sighing at the taste. If she noticed the fact her 14-year-old boy was able to drink her wine, she didn't show it. And how would you do that? My mom took her eyes from her book and lazily aimed them at me. She was giving me the same attention you give a piece of trash blowing amusing in the wind. You've lacked any worth since your biatch. What could you have earned within a day? I know where Dad is. I honestly thought she hadn't heard me at first, then I guessed it clicked because she moved. I leaned back a second too late, stabbing out with my pencil hand, but it didn't make a difference. Both the pencil and my arms sank into my mom's hair, not stopping its advance at all while it oozed over me. In moments, I was held a foot off the ground, hanging upside down, staring into those pink eyes that were now fully interested in me. Where is he? Mom's voice had gone as cold as Todoroki's ice. I, on the other hand, was trying to keep her goo hair out of my face. I knew for a fact that her hair would hurt like hell if it got in my eyes. Minoru, where is your father? Can't tell ya. Her hair seemed to constrict around me with a surprising amount of force, slightly covering my nose. Hurting me won't help you find the answer. Let's bargain. The hair loosened a bit before sloshing off me, leaving me to fall onto the ground as it oozed back to my mom's head. Go on, my mom said, taking another bite of her lunch like she hadn't just assaulted her son. You hate me. I didn't know if it was good or bad that I wasn't surprised when she nodded her head in agreement. Can't say I'm a fan of you either, but I know we both hate Dad and Grandpa more. You met them when you were a child. What do you remember of them? Dad I hate because he left me with you. That earned a laugh from her. As for Grandpa, I remember a lot of when I was a kid. The lie came easily enough. You guys didn't say a lot of it, but you weren't actually keeping your voice down when you talked around me. So what do you know then? She asked, reaching for a different wine bottle, this one with a rose design. It seemed I had her attention. If she was taking out that stock, it also meant I needed to hurry up. She gets hitsy when she gets tipsy. He's the reason you and Dad got together, and he is caring for your mother at a hospital you don't know the location of. I do air quotes at the word caring. He paid off the lawsuits your father left the family with and handled your college payments, but now you're in his pocket. Oh, I also remember that both you and my dad hate him. My mom's eyes widened in surprise. You remember a lot. A bit too much, if I'm being honest. Oh yeah. I clapped my hands as if I just remembered something. Pretty sure Grandpa works or leads a criminal gang. Mom's hand fumbling to catch the bottle she just dropped told me she wasn't expecting that. Bullshit. I refuse to believe you remember all of this and haven't brought it up before. Her hair began to grow, more of it oozing from her skull till she had a rapidly growing puddle around her. You're half right, I said, thinking of something more believable than time travel. A teacher at my school can reawaken memories. I was an example for the class. That caused her to pause, bubbles of hair floating around her like some type of lava lamp. Say I believe that, she said slowly. Why suddenly decide to go after your grandfather? He's sort of the only reason you're alive. True, I agreed, taking a sip of wine. He gave me life. He gave me a life of pain with no father and a misandrist mom who he is also taking money from. I think I have more than enough reason to hate the man as much as both you and Dad do, but it's not just hate either. It's hunger. Oh. Today I saw a bunch of children with looks, status, power, potential, and happiness. I realized that it's partly because of Grandpa that I will never have those things, or at least I'll have to work for them harder than most. So I want my pound of flesh. Not even sure if that statement can be called a lie when it was based on a revelation I had years ago. Mom blinked at me for a moment before leaning over and refilling both of our glasses. This is by far the most interested I've been in you since, well, ever. All right, you got my attention, boy. Just 2 questions. Only 2. Oh, I have more, but I can't afford to be here all night, and you live here. I nodded to her point. And why tell me you know I hate you and you hate me as well? Why make me aware of this? I raised an eyebrow. I don't hate you, Mum. At least I don't think I do. I don't necessarily like you, but it's more apathy than hate, but as for why I'm telling you, it's simple. I want your help. I didn't know what I was expecting for a reaction, but started laughing. Real laughing, holding her stomach and everything. And here I thought you were making sense? My mom chuckled, wiping tears from her eyes. What makes you think you can even find your grandpa, let alone do anything to hurt him? Oh, Grandpa will come to me, I said casually, finishing my wine. And how will you manage that? She tried to play it off, but she was interested. Simple. I know what hospital your mom is at. If I bring you to her, he's going to come running. Mom nearly choked on her wine at that statement. So Mom, tell me I'm still worthless? She leaned back on her seat, her hair sinking back into her scalp until it returned to a shoulder length. I'm not sure yet. You might just be fool's gold, but, she smiled, and that might have been the first time my mother has ever smiled at me, but you made yourself interesting to pay attention to, so there might be some worth in you yet, son. I'm annoyed how good it felt to hear that. After that, the conversation between me and Mom came to a close, but we did come to an arrangement. Every week, we would have a 30-1:30 hour talk about anything. During this talk, I basically had to show my worth. Meaning that every week I would have to show some progress in UA or progress in bringing down Grandpa. If she saw the worth as adequate, then during that week I'd be treated like a son and allowed as much food as I wanted, the whole 9 yards. If not, Mother will be hostile to me, which you'd think wouldn't be much different than my first life, but honestly, unless she was drunk or feeling shitey, Mom would just ignore me. Honestly, it was more than I was expecting from her. I thought I would have to leave the house and live at a manga cafe. I'm interested in this weekly talk. She wanted them to be monthly, but I want to talk to my mom more. I never truly knew her in my first life, and from the bits and pieces Jackson helped me put together, I'm interested in her side of the story. Not expecting a healthy mother-son relationship, but I'm interested in what we can get. Of course, I kept my call with Dad a secret. Need to keep some cards close to my chest. Speaking of my father, I was happy to see an email containing his medical records as well as an invite to a money-sending app. 5 minutes later and I was the proud owner of $400. I guessed he wanted to get on my good side. That, plus the $300 Mom gave me as a start to our deal, and I'd say day one of Back in the Past was going well. It could easily go to shit if Dad said FCK it and ran away. Then I'm basically boned, but it wasn't the first time I'd made a dangerous bet. At that point, knowledge was my only advantage, and I was milking it for as much as it was worth. It was those thoughts that went through my head as I laid on my bed smiling like a crazy man. "Thank you," I whispered to whatever God had brought me back before closing my eyes. Only for them to burst open as a thought came to my mind. Couldn't I have just asked Recovery Girl to check the problem herself? I knew the problem so she would know what to look for. It took me a moment to digest that thought before I slowly grabbed my pillow and placed it over my face. For F's sake. Date: September 8, 2101 to September 14, 2101. Title: Long but Weak. Day 1. It's been a couple hours since I left Akira, and apparently God has decided that I've been unfucked for too long. Even with a bike, getting out of Yokohama isn't gonna be easy. It takes maybe an hour of riding before the amount of heroes becomes too uncomfortable to ride though. The second I find a discreet enough alleyway, I ride in and get to work. First thing I do is put on some new clothing and a hat. My last one is covered in mud and blood. I really wish I could say new clothes make a new man, but my skin feels like Kirishima has been rubbing his hair on it for hours. Locking my bike under a dumpster, thanks to Akira for buying a lock. I then ball up my old clothing in the left sleeve of my hoodie and place a backpack on that shoulder. It won't fool anyone if they get a real good look at me, but in life, one does not usually stare at random people's arms and try to figure out if they're real. After my makeover, I walk to the closest manga cafe. To those that don't know, manga cafes might as well be homeless hotels in Japan. For like $1 a day or something, you get a room, food, and bathing. Dropping the money to the counter, I give the girl at the front a quick nod before walking to the closest showers. Thank God they aren't occupied. Now this is the part that SCKs. Taking a backpack strap and putting it in my mouth, I turn the water to hot, grab some soap, and begin to clean myself. Now, anyone that knew me when I was a kid knows I'm a crier. I'm not scared to say it. Jacob tried to beat it out of me, Bastion tried to beat it out of me, Rufy and Androgynous would. Actually, they either let me cry or tried to make me feel better. Back to the point, I cry when I'm frustrated or scared, but it's never stopped me from getting the job done, and I would love to see anyone clean out their own skin fissures and not cry like a little beach. Sir? Are you all right in there? The lady on the front must have come to check on me. I guess that whimper was louder than I thought. Sorry, I stepped on something sharp, I reply, watching the bloody water go into the drain. All right then. You got 5 more minutes, by the way, she replies, accompanied by the sound of her walking away. The next 5 minutes could be described as a full body scrubbing with steel wool and then getting toweled off with sandpaper. I go through the process of cleaning my whole body. The water turns into all kinds of different colors as I pry away cracked skin and scrub off dried blood. Can't say that I feel better after leaving that shower, but I do feel cleaner. After that, I go to my room where I start to care for my wounds. Akira got me everything I needed. The antibiotics, cream, and pills were the first things I used, and boy did they feel nice. I let out a sigh of relief as the itching burning feeling that had cursed me since I used grape skin finally died down. After wrapping myself up, I decide to work on a game plan. The bike is a short reprieve. As much as I love Akira, I assume he told the cops its brand and everything. So either I need to get as far away as possible before the bike is recognized, or hide out until the heat dies down. As much as I would love to stay, Endeavor's son is gonna be in this town soon, and I don't need another problem. I guess the only thing now is to figure out how to get the hell out of Yokohama. Day 2. I leave the cafe early in the morning at around 5 a.m. Night heroes are about to go to bed, and earlier morning heroes are still groggy. I'm feeling great personally, but I'm pretty sure that's because of the painkillers that I had before leaving. And for the first time since I've broken out of prison, I feel honestly prepared. While most of my food and medical supplies are in the cart on my bike, I make sure to stick a bag full of supplies on my back with a couple of smaller orbs so I don't lose it. I also sewed survival pockets into my current breathes and put one of my camping knives in my phone had finally died, but I did manage to get a look at a map of the city before it did, so I at least know which way to go. Plan is basically to bike as far as I can till I get to a smaller town, or at least somewhere that doesn't have so many heroes around, then get on a train to Kobe. I have nothing else to write, so I'll continue if something happens. I briefly see my reflection before smashing through the glass wall of the office building. Thankfully, I still couldn't feel anything as I slam into tables and desks and finally come to a stop after smashing through a draft wall and falling gracefully on my back. As you can tell, something happened. For the sweet love of God, something happened. And by something, I mean FENGMT lady. It was about 2 hours after I made my way to get out of the city. The wind was blowing. I was on cloud 9 from a second dose of painkillers, and the bike was riding like a dream. It was in that state of euphoria that I noticed a crowd snapping pictures of someone. Curiosity killed the freaking cat, so I crossed the street, which I think is what F'd me. Or rather, whoever honked their horn at me while I illegally crossed the street. I'm still wondering what tipped her off. Did she decide to catch a jaywalker? Or did she recognize the bike's description? Whatever it was, one moment I'm biking away from a group taking pictures of someone, next moment I hear a thumping. Looking back, I curse as I see the giant form of a lady reaching down to grab me. "Thank you, Jackson," is the only thing that comes to mind as I lean sharply to the left while lifting my left leg. I feel the wind from her fingers brush my head as I slide the bike under her hand while also turning a sharp left. If this was a motorcycle instead of a bike with an electric engine, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have the strength needed to pull off that trick with one arm. On the other hand, if it was a motorcycle, I could have probably outrun MT lady. Righting myself with a grunt, I have a moment to consider the cons of freaking turning into traffic before I have to serve to avoid driving into a car. Move, watch out the way, move. For a couple moments, it's just me screaming words like that, and cars swerving to avoid me until I find the center of the car lines and rode down that way. Looking back, I see MT lady trying to follow me while trying not to step on any cars. Finally, a freaking win. I would love to see her try to grab me and have a car run into her finger. Wait, no, scratch that, she might get a broken finger, but I bet the driver would be dead. Now for the bigger problem is getting out of sight before more heroes show up. My thoughts are interrupted by another hero showing up. Jiroda Shishida is scary, strong, and possibly a descendant of Tarzan, but what I didn't know was that he was so casual. Dude looks like the kind of hero that makes himself known when he shows up by beating his chest or swinging from a vine. One moment I'm riding down the road enjoying my great escape, the next moment a giant furry arm comes from the window of the car driving past me. I have a moment to think about the fact that this real-life Donkey Kong is really about drive-by clothesline me. The next moment I notice how coarse his fur is before I slam face first into his arm. I feel my nose break as I slam into what feels like a furry streetlight, which sends me sailing feet overhead until I smash into the hood of a car that had stopped to watch the heroes beat the sheet out of me. I think the painkillers are wearing off. I groan as I roll off the car. Jiroda apparently seems to be in the mood for grapes for breakfast, because he's already out of his car on all fours running at me. Falling to my stomach, I let out a cry as I roll under the car I just smashed into. Jiroda, being the Rikido of Class B, simply lifts the car with no problem. Thankfully, he does it slowly, probably to not hurt the civilians in said car. This gives me time to pull out my gun and shoot him in the kneecap. He grunts. I just fired a gun like 3 feet away into his knee, and he freaking grunts like he walked into a table chair. I yell, jumping forward and pressing the gun into his stomach. 1, 2, 3, I keep pulling the trigger till I hear the telltale sound of an empty chamber. Thankfully that seems to have done something. Sadly, whatever damage it does causes Jiroda to drop the car, which lands on me and sends me slamming into the ground. This would be a perfect time for Jiroda to pull me out and start pounding the F out of me Donkey Kong style, but I guess he's a little distracted. The Yeti man is bullet resistant, not immune. The pro hero stumbles away, holding his stomach where I just unloaded into him. Burning RBB brings me back to reality. Guess Mr. Driver has decided he's a little too close to the combat. Rolling completely under the car and leaning my head forward, I press my head against the bottom of the car, sticking to it the second before it starts reversing from the wounded hero. I spread my leg to latch the edges of the car to stop my back from scraping on the road. Thankfully, Mr. Driver still has enough wit to not keep reversing into oncoming traffic and decides to gun it back the way I came. I swear Jiroda makes the Chewbacca noise as we drive past. Okay, new plan. Hopefully this dude is going far away from this fight, and I can dismount and go hide in an alley somewhere. My shoddy plan is interrupted by the car suddenly stopping. No way he caught up to the car with that gut wound. That thought is quickly proven in the worst way possible when the car starts to rise in the air. Oh, I guess MD lady knows I'm here, I think as I place my gun in my mouth while reaching into my pocket for a new clip. Once high enough, I disconnect my orbs, sending myself falling back to the ground. Wait, why didn't she have her other hand to catch me? I think as I load the gun, ping it with my teeth, returning it back to its holster, then throwing a compact grape on the ground. I actually feel my scalp crack as I push my quirk past its limit. Hope someone caught that on camera, 'cause that must have been cool. Where the hell am I going? I think desperately as I land on the orb eye, darting around before I realize that it wouldn't matter. The reason why MD lady doesn't try to catch me while I'm falling is because her giant hand is ped back. Violet eyes were glued onto me as she clenched her hand into a fist, getting ready to literally punch me to hell. There's nothing I can do, I think around gritted teeth. Unlike flies, I can't change directions mid-air. I jump with a high arc, and I'll get swatted. I jump with a low arc, and I'll smash into a car then get swatted. Launching from the ball, I can only watch as she lets fly an overhand punch, her car-sized hand getting closer and closer. My brain must be burning itself up, because it's taking forever for it to hit. As death crawls its way over to me, I go over my life. Not in a life flashes before my eyes way, more of a man I lived a sheet life sort of way. From start to finish, it was a pretty shitty ride, a lot of it my own making, a decent amount just because of fate. It was only after leaving UA that stuff started looking up. I met Rufy and Jackson, I was allowed into the Grey Academy, and I spent time with Class T. I lived a short life, but I managed to go around the world and did things most heroes and villains never even dreamed of. And then I came back to Japan. Coming back to the place I was born really jolted me back to reality. Who was there? Family? My classmates? Only one blonde-haired idiot who had been with me since the beginning, who took a day from his job to meet me at the airport. The same blonde idiot who was my first and best friend in this sheet-filled book I called a life. The same best friend who made me his kid's godfather. The same best friend who died alone in the rain and sent me clues to finish what he started. The same best friend that I'm letting down by giving up and dying to this big beach when I should avenging the only man I gave a flying F about in this demon world. The scream that comes out of my throat is hoarse. I fly into the air. I scream in fury as empty lady hand comes closer. I scream in victory as I push myself past my limits and then past them again. My grape skin feels different this time when I force it out of me, like a bush is growing from my skin, a bush made of steel and covered with lemon juice that constantly wiggles and moves slightly. I feel clotted wounds reopen and am immediately damp with all the fresh blood leaving me. The next second, her fist makes contact. I think my nerves are just done with this bullshit, because I don't feel the fist hitting me or me hitting the ground. I feel the wind as I'm sent sailing through the air. I guess I bounce at an angle, or else I assume she would have just hit me down again like a paddleball. After a couple moments of seeing only blue sky as I fly through the air, I'm concerned. I've been sailing for a couple seconds now, how hard did I bounce? I'm also sort of worried that I can no longer feel anything, especially since I know for a fact I'm FB. Probably means my nerve ending got damaged with that last move, hope nothing permanent. Wait, is that my reflect dash? And that's how I got in my current predicament. Thank God I can't feel anything, because smashing into that glass wall would have hurt. I black out for a moment, but I think I hear people screaming. I escaped, yeah, I say. I can't hear past the ringing in my ears. Lifting a trembling arm up, I grab my nose before forcing it back into a straight position with a slight crack. Can't be losing any more of my good looks now, can I? From the corner in my eyes, I see something with green hair jump through the hole I had created with my body. No, I say as the green hair blur hops closer to me. I strain, trying to focus on her, but my vision stubbornly stays fuzzy. Tsu, is that you? If it is, then just kill me because at this point, God is calling me. I'm not Tsuyu, the voice replies, barely audible behind the ringing in my ears. But I'll kill you like you want. Though I doubt you'll see God. The last thing I see is Natsuyu pull back her foot and smash it into my chin. Thankfully, I'm pretty sure I'm already out before she makes contact. Day 3. I wonder what Jackson is doing. Is he having a nice cup of coffee while I'm getting my butt beat up and down the fine town of Yokohama? Because unless he's on a mission, the second I see that man, I'm kicking him in the nuts. If I can. Pretty sure Jackson could give Midoriya some problems. It's this weird thought that goes through my mind as I wake up. First thing I notice is that I'm handcuffed to a bed. Next thing I notice is that I can't feel most of my body. Looking down at myself, I see I'm still wearing my briefs, though someone had seen fit to remove my shirt, probably to remove the backpack stuck to it and my gun holster. Odin, I look like old meatloaf, I think, as I lift a bandage to stare at my bruised and cracked skin. That grape skin felt different. Much different than my normal version. Did my quirk awaken? Considering how high I bounced, I assume it used the same hair as I do when I use a compact grape. In that case, I might have evolved to grow more hair, since I'm pretty sure I was at my limit right there. That would be, actually, really useful. Grape skin is only like 3 millimeters thick normally. I panicked and overused the hell out of it at the tower, which makes me resistant to a lot of damage, but it can still be overwhelmed with enough weight or force depending on how much hair I have. If my quirk did awaken, then hopefully it did create a lot of hair for Grapskin. It would make me, well, not indestructible, but at least I wouldn't be getting worked over by every single hero I came across. Less beaching, more focusing. I shake my head. Tilting my head, I bite into my shoulder to see if I could get some feeling. Nope. Oh God, that ain't good. Jackson taught us that pain was our friend. It told us what was alive and what needed to be worked on. No pain either means you're perfectly fine, or you're truly effed up, and no one is ever perfectly fine. Since I can't feel anything, I try to move my legs and arms to see if they still work. It takes a second, but the limbs do what they're told. Don't think anything is majorly broken. Probably got some fractures that I can't feel. Please don't have internal bleeding. Alright, so I've been captured, but not by heroes or cops, or I'd be in a real jail cell. Looking around the room, I noticed that whoever captured me probably did it in a spur-of-the-moment kind of thing, because who the F locks someone up in a guest bedroom? A window, blue bed, green wall paint, slight smell of rain but lacking the bit of life that makes it clear a room is regularly used. Yep, this is a guest bedroom, and with the frog pillow on the bed, I'm scratching my head a bit. Okay, so Natsuyu told me she wasn't Tsuyu, and Tsuyu would have no reason to lie to me. I could be a fan of Tsuyu. Someone else with a frog quirk that looks up to her, but why did she grab me? Instantly, I remember what Sakura said. Basically all the girls spilled the beans of my first year action to the news. I've got to get out of here. Heroes and cops have rules, but FING fans can do some crazy shit. Dislocating my thumb and pulling my hand from the cuff, I strain to get to my feet. I don't feel any pain, but my legs wobble before I fall straight down to my face. Something is definitely wrong there. Relocating my fingers, I channeled my inner Aizawa Andy inchworm my way to the door and lean into it to listen for something. After hearing nothing, I try to open it. The door slides open with barely a sound, and the hallway beckons me to freedom. This is too easy. My eyes trailing across the hallway, I try to notice anything odd, any traps, anything at all. After finding nothing, I lean over slightly and stick my hand out of the doorway and wish I died. Now hear me out, I've experienced pain before. Getting stabbed in prison, working as a hero, working for Jackson. I've been kicked, stabbed, shot, and a lot of other things, but right now, you could have put a black cloak and some rods into me and called me Nagato, because I knew pain. Even looking back on it, I can't explain what type of pain it was. Closest thing I can compare it to is if someone had poured superheated worms into my bloodstream and they were slowly eating their way through my body. Thankfully my body isn't up for that and gives me sweet release after a couple seconds of that hell. Is he dead? Oh, it saves us the trouble. If I had $1 for how many times I've heard that, I wouldn't be rich, but I'd probably be able to buy a beaching necklace or something. Hey Bisudi, are you alive? I play dead, deciding to see if they'll go back to talking if they think I'm out. I'll move the field on top of you if you don't. Not in the mood for that again. I roll onto my stomach, not feeling strong enough to get to my feet. See, I told you he was alive. How did he get out of the HNDCFFS? A third voice asks. Oh goody, there are more. Hey numbnuts, how you'd get out of the cuffs? The second voice asks in a voice that's way too loud for my liking. Sh. I groan as if I couldn't speak well and try to look more pitiful than I already feel. Maybe my quirk broke him, the first voice wonders. She sounds concerned, which could mean a lot of things, but I'm hoping that she doesn't want to kill me. Rising to my knees, I survey the trio. All three are wearing masks, identical ski masks, classic, and are wearing black briefs and shirts. They're also all female, so I'm already on edge. What happened to me? I ask, throat dry as I try to rise to my feet. My quirk allows me to make zones where I can make people feel different things, the girl in the middle says. She's the shortest of the group, maybe 5 feet 4 inches, which means she still towers over my 4 feet 9 inches height. Little bit on the heavy side, and from what I could hear from her voice, a little nervous. That's pretty much all I could determine from her appearance. Usually I use it at work to make everyone calm, but we couldn't have you running around the house. The house? Not your house? Her eyes glance at the third member of their group, the one that hasn't talked yet. No, it's her house, and not sure yet, but I'm betting she dropped this little kidnapping plot on you, didn't she? Shorty's eyes widen, confirming my statement. The loud one looks like she wants to say something, but I cut her off, turning to Miss Quiet. You're the one that took me from the building, right? Miss Quiet stares at me. Looking her over, she is uncomfortably similar to Tsuyu. Same frog posture, same green hair, though most of it was hidden under the mask, and the same deadpan eyes. Honestly, I would have thought she was Tsuyu if it wasn't for one thing. Satsuki, was it? What is the sister of the number 5 hero doing kidnapping people? Satsuki's eyes widen as she takes a step back in surprise. Shorty looks shocked, and Loudmouth looks vaguely surprised. Anyone that knew Tsuyu well enough might have been able to guess that they were sisters, but my way was a bit more instinctual. How the F did you figure it out? Loudmouth asks. Well, if I wasn't sure before, I am now. Yeah, these three are new to the kidnapping shtick. Her melons, hips, and thighs are smaller than her sisters, I answer truthfully. The three girls stare at me for a moment, and I honestly couldn't blame them. Even Jackson was always impressed that I was able to recognize people from their figures. I had actually used that skill to recognize an assassin that was hiding out in a cosplay function. So why am I here? I ask, getting a bit uncomfortable with the girls glaring at me. Satsuki, explain. You seem to be the leader of this merry band. She stares at me for a moment before pulling off her ski mask and stepping towards the doorway. Shorty makes a hand gesture before she actually walks through. So, she can control and move those zones, which could be a problem. Satsuki has basically the same quirk as Tsuyu. Good to know if a fight breaks out, but honestly wouldn't do me much good. I still don't know what Loudmouth's quirk is. To be honest, if any of them try anything, I really don't think I could do anything besides cry and take it like a beach. Do you know why you're here, Mineta? Because you kidnapped me, I say, looking behind me at the window on the other side of the room, briefly wondering if there's a zone around it. Also, why did you kidnap me? I was already passed out. I knocked you out, Satsuki says. I passed out, I repeat. The point is I was out. Why grab me when you could have literally left me for the cops? Shorty's eyes widen, and she looks at Satsuki. Loudmouth puts a hand on her shoulder before she can say anything. Yes, I could have left you to the cops, she says, stretching her hands over her head. I could see what was coming, but Diamond, my body isn't ready to react to it. Her tongue lashes out and smashes into my stomach. The force sends me skidding a couple feet back. That was for my sister. I would have had a witty comeback to that, but I'm trying to get the wind back into my lungs. Falling to my knees, I don't even get the chance to lose my lunch before her tongue strikes me again, this time in the forehead, properly folding me to the ground like the world's most abused lawn chair. That was for whatever girl you forced yourself on. You hit like a substitute teacher, I groan on the ground. She apparently takes that as an insult, because I feel her tongue wrap around my face. These are for the rest of the girls of Class 1A? Wait, Wait, Wadash, I barely get a chance to put my arm over my head before she smashes me head first into the ceiling. Up, down, up, down, up, down. She smashes me into the ceiling a couple more times before letting go, allowing me to drop unceremoniously to the ground. Cops or heroes would have brought you to justice, but I don't want justice. I want revenge. I've done nothing to you. I growl, getting back to my feet. Your sister has every right to hate me. You, on the other hand, don't even know me. Her tongue lashes out, hitting me in the shoulder and sending me spinning to the ground. Hopefully her frog quirk is weaker than her sister's, because I think Tsuyu can throw a car with hers. I know everything I need to know about you. I know enough about you to know that you don't deserve an easy death. I know enough to know that you don't deserve to peacefully go to sleep. I know my sister was wrong to forgive you. I grew up hearing stories of what you did to the girls at UA, including my sister. And then years after you left with your tail between your legs, you come back claiming to be better and fixing old wounds. She laughs before lashing me with her tongue. This time, she hit my stump, which brought a new type of pain. I guess the scream I let out surprised her, 'cause no more tongue lashes came out. That is fresh. I growl, holding my mutilated shoulder. God damn it, it's bleeding again. I don't have the blood for this. How hasn't that healed yet? Loudmouth asks. During my whipping, she looked vaguely excited, the opposite to Shorty's thinly veiled horror. I lost the thing like 2 weeks ago. I think? How long has it been since I left prison? 19 days. Really? I shake my head in wonder. Really? God, a week in the cold rain, and a hero attack, and now I'm gonna die because some beach with a sister comple dash. This time, the tongue slaps me across the face, sending me spinning in a graceful arc till I smash face first into the corner of a dresser. Will you stop that? You don't seem to understand what is happening. I guess Satsuki is upset at being ignored. Her eyebrows are slightly furrowed, and if her face is anything like Tsuyu's, that means she is livid. I brought you here to kill you. You're gonna die here today, and you will die horribly. Her voice held the thinly veiled rage you just don't hear from Tsuyu. No. I shake my head. No. No, I confirm. You would not be killing me, you would be murdering me, and you won't be murdering me either, or else your friends are gonna go to jail. What's the difference? Loudmouth asks. Jail? Shorty squeaks. Killing is something that is done in war or in an even fight. A hero kills a villain that's holding hostages. Murder is what you're doing. You're about to beat an injured, one-armed 4 feet 9 inches man to death. I've shown no hostilities. If anything, I'm the victim here. I managed to duck under Satsuki's tongue this time, but I'm not ready for her whipping it downward, slamming it on my shoulder. I hear a pop as it's dislocated. At least it's the arm less shoulder, I think numbly as I roll on the ground. How dare you claim to be a victim? Satsuki shrieks, displaying rage that her sister doesn't even display to villains. Her tongue smashes into me again, this time in the stomach. Because I wheeze. I'm being held against my will and tortured by the 3 of you. I am a victim in this case, and you 3 will go to jail for it. Dead men tell no tales, Loudmouth helpfully points out. No, but my body will. You guys are sloppy, and from what I can guess, you 2 were dragged into this. I roll onto my stomach. What if Satsuki messed something up? She dragged me here from her job, after all. What if a camera caught her? What if someone saw her with me? Hero's sister kidnaps defeated villain whose body shows up later. Wouldn't that look good on the news? The people would praise me, Satsuki says, walking closer and grabbing me by the hair. She really doesn't know me if she doesn't know to not touch that. You think anyone would really try and charge me? I just need to say you attacked me, and I can get away scot-free. Possibly. It's quite possible the government covered up bigger things, but no, the problem with that is that you have a hero for a sister. A high-ranking one as well. I tilt my head to look her in her dead frog eyes. Whether Tsuyu was involved in this or not, people are gonna think she did. The trust in heroes is pretty weak nowadays. What are people gonna think if heroes start killing people in the background? They won't blame my sister for my actions. Just like people didn't blame my family for my granddad's? People remember that sheet. Satsuki, you really want to risk bringing that sheet on your family just so you can hurt a man already destined for death? I laugh in her face. Throwing away your family's reputation and well-being just to get back at someone who wronged you in the past sounds pretty villainous to me. Satsuki hisses and slams me face first into the ground. Thankfully, it's enough to knock me out. I wake up to new bandages around my stump and re-handcuffed to the bed. I guess they didn't want me bleeding too much on their good floor. Which reminds me, is it called a stump? I'm missing the arm up to the shoulder, but I still had the shoulder itself, so, questions for later. Sitting up, I look around the room only to meet the eyes of Loudmouth, who is sitting on a chair watching me. Whether I succeed or not, I'd rather there be a record of my attempt so my story will be heard. Until then, this is Mineta Minoru signing off. A familiar voice comes from a laptop she has in her hands. Well, at least my flash drive is intact. Rewatching my greatest hits? I ask, rising to a kneeling position. Yes, actually, she replies. Second rewatch, to be honest. If I'm gonna kill someone, I'd like to know that I'm doing the right thing. Speaking of my possible upcoming death, where are the other two, and why am I still alive? My friend stopped Satsuki from smashing your head in. She said that it might have left marks in the floor that her sister would notice. There was an interesting part where she was stuck to your hair and the other one helped her. Then they got into an argument over whether anyone saw her take you and all that. If you were planning to start a fight, you did a pretty good job. I run my arm over my body, hissing at the new bruises that have formed from my recent beating. You seem pretty calm talking to me. There's a zone about 3 feet around you, so you can't really touch me. Plus I have this. She lifts up my pistol from her lap, waving it in front of me with a sheet-eating grin. How the hell did you get that? Ask eyes white. Was I still bloody holding it when Satsuki found it? Apparently. Well, Satsuki said it was stuck to your chest by some purple stuff. It came off in her car. Oh, my blood in her car. Tell Shorty about that as well. At her raised eyebrow, I explain, the longer they fight, the longer I have to figure out a way out of this. You think you can escape this? Even if we decide not to kill you, they're going to turn you into the cops, and you'll be back on death row. I'll deal with the cops if they get involved. I shrug my shoulders, hissing at the pain that comes with it. So why are you watching my flash drive? Trying to learn more about you. She turns the laptop to show me. On it are different news articles showing my hero work across the world. From what I've found out, you're an international hero. Not the cream of the CRP by any means, but you help in a lot of cases. I was in the top 200. I think angrily as I read the screen. Yeah, it's not the top 10, but once you hit the top 100 of the international hero list, you basically get people who can fight Japan's top. That was a stupid decision. At her raised eyebrow, I explain. You're about to kill someone, and you just decide to look into their life? What if I had a wife or kid or something, or I had opened an orphanage? You think that would stop me from killing you? That it would absolve you of your sins? Hell no. I'm saying you're throwing emotions into it. You're giving a name and life to the face that you're going to kill. Well, excuse me for wanting more information about who I'm about to kill. She humps before turning the computer back to face her. So what's the most recent news on me? Well, the first thing that came up was your hostage video with that couple. I grin at that. What's been the response? Some think he was working with you to get money, but apparently his wife has been talking about your interactions with her. It made it seem more believable. Some people have been sending money to pay for what you took from him, and I think a pro-hero replied on the video asking to question him. Well, hope he gets his money. Wait, what did Sakura say about me? That you threatened her with a gun, claimed you were framed, and a couple other things? At least she was telling the truth. I sigh in relief. I sort of assumed she would say I touched her or something just to screw me over. That's a dim view to have of someone you took hostage. Women are poison daggers, I say, stretching my arm. They can be cool to look at, but hold one the wrong way, and they can cause injuries that will never heal. Which leads me to my second observation. She pauses and scratches her head. I would have paid to see behind the mask and read her expressions. You were apparently a menace at UA? I roll my eyes at her statement, which she notices. You don't agree? Menace is an overstatement. She raises an eyebrow at me. Saying crude things to girls? Any high schooler has put their foot in their mouth, I counter. Inappropriate touching? Circumstantial at best. Momo, I was on her back. Tsuyu wasn't even on purpose. I was more focused on All Might coming to save us and Ishido. Well yeah, not gonna lie, that one I planned out like Batman. Half the stuff they claim I did was by accident. And the other half? I'll admit to that guilt. Peeking on the girls? Okay, yeah, I did do that. Trying to steal their underwear? I wouldn't say steal. I was trying to sniff them. At her. Look, I shrug. I could blame my mental illness, but yeah, I was sort of effed up as a kid. Trick them into wearing skimpy clothing? Okay, yeah. I did that too, but Denki was right with me for that. Roofing your classmates? I didn't do that. I roar that statement, bringing up bad memories. God damn it, I didn't even go near the punch at that party, but everyone thought I spiked it. Ugh, the amount of fights that started still makes me mad. A&G teacher thought I did it too, but there was no evidence, so they couldn't really punish me for it. So you draw the line at drugging your classmates? She shrugs, giving me a pointed look. I guess that makes you a perfect gentleman, in the 1780s? Fine, I'll admit I wasn't the best person as a kid, but there was a big jump between trying to peek on girls to becoming a RPST. Wait, look up my mission in China 3 years back. Me and a team destroyed some human trafficking rings. She nods to confirm that she's read it. Yeah, but it also states that you were undercover in that organization for 3 months so far as I know. You could have been having a blast and got everyone else arrested to cover your tracks? I stare at her wide-eyed. Do you really believe that? She shrugs. I don't know what to believe from your little, I'm gonna prove my innocence video, and the fact that beside your time at UA, you seem to have been a decent hero. Violent as hell and a little underhanded, sure. Also you seem to avoid most female heroes like the plague, but other than that, decent in the grand moral standpoint. But? I ask, waiting for the other shoe to drop. For some reason, a couple of your pro-hero missions are bare bones. You don't seem to stay anywhere long, and you're cited for being involved in a couple of big cases, but I couldn't find an interview with you or any big statements about it. You're almost a shadow in some of these missions, like you're only there to cover someone else's tracks, or someone is covering up your tracks. She puts the laptop aside to look at me. This gives me 3 theories on you so far. She holds up a finger. So A, you really are being framed, and then I'd be helping to kill an innocent person. B, you've been a hero for all these years, but you fell off the wagon, in which case I have no qualms in killing you. Or C, you've been doing this across the world, and you only got caught here because someone has been helping you cover your tracks? Her blue eyes narrow on me, becoming cold as ice as she levels my pistol at my face. You have 10 seconds to convince me it's option A before I put a bullet in you. Wait, what? Just like that? Sheet, guns are loud. I exclaim, eyes trained on the barrel. The neighbors will hear. My quick controls sound. Why do you think no one heard Satsuki smashing you around her house? 7 ticks. I've been FNG hiding out the last couple week. You just watched and read everything I've freaking been doing since I got out of jail. 5. That's not convincing me. 4. How will you be hiding the body? The grin she gives me answers my question and tells me all I needed to know about this girl. You've done this before. I don't know why or what the circumstances were, but this girl has seen death and been involved in it. Something like it. 3. Mind going blank, I blurt out the first thing that comes to mind. I'm undercover. Her raised eyebrow and waving of the gun told me to keep going. I'm part of a branch of the IHA that handles under-the-table interactions with other governments and high-power individuals, I say slowly, trying to give myself more time to think of what I can say without getting myself in trouble. It isn't exactly a perfect description of the Grey Academy, but it was close enough that Jackson might get upset. I've exposed secrets and lies from across the world under the guise of different heroes and civilians. There are many rich people in our country that would want me dead if they knew some of my other identities. Tell me more. She leans back on her seat and puts the gun away. If I tell you dash, you'll have to kill me? No, But there's a high chance someone will come to kill you either to learn what they think you know or to hide what secrets they think you know. They might kill the other two as well. That causes her to pause for a moment before she goes back to reach for the gun. Think about it, I say, forcing as much stress as I can to start leaking from my throat. Arrested suddenly, no trail, not even an official word of what I did. Then the leaks. Why hasn't the government spoken about it yet? Wait, look up the criminal rights of international heroes. She narrows her eyes at me before typing on her keyboard. She reads it for a bit before raising an eyebrow. You're supposed to be taken to some sort of committee and then given to the country that you broke the crime in to be given a trial there. In some cases, your country of BRH will be given custody of yo dash. Yeah, but all committee decisions should be documented. Hell, the very notion of an international hero doing a scandal like that should have made some waves. More typing, more reading. After a couple of minutes, she looks up to me. Nothing at all. No news of the hero grape shot for about a year now. Exactly. After I went back to Japan. So you're saying the IHA doesn't know you're here? Oh, they know I'm here. IHA heroes have to make it clear where they are whenever they're on duty or not, so they must know I'm here. I assume the Japanese government is doing something to keep them from making a fuss. That's probably why my team hasn't sent anyone to save me or just have Stars and Stripes request my release into IHA custody. Right. Get me and all my friends killed. She sighs and goes back to her computer. Well, you made a sound at least possible, if not completely crazy. So you believe me? Not sure yet, but it at least convinced me enough not to shoot you. I'll take it. I sigh in relief. So what now? We wait to see what the girls will decide. It's basically their show now. I'm neutral. I blink at her. FING neutral? She's about to shoot me in the face. Are you gonna stop me from escaping? If you can get through the field, then sure, go ahead, but if you attack them, I'm gonna light you up. Could you help me convince them? She raises an eyebrow at me. You want me to convince them that you're some type of spy, and the government wants you dead? I was more hoping that you could convince them that I'm being framed and that my arrest seems shifty, but whatever floats your boat. But I don't believe you yet. Not completely, but it paused you enough to not kill me. At this point, I'll take that. All I need is time. She stares at me for a moment before shrugging. I'll throw my 2 cents in, but she seems to hate you. She can hate me all she wants. I'm used to it. I just need her to get out of my way. I have an innocence to prove, and then I'm going back to America. Not gonna stay in your homeland? I stare at her, waiting for her to realize why the F that isn't gonna happen. F Japan. Only reason I came back here was to dig in my family closet and bury the hatchet with my old classmates. You see how that went. Once I'm done with this, I'm going back to America, or maybe Canada. I was happy there. I heard Mexico has some nice places. I can't go to Mexico. Why? Wait, why can't I? I blink as I pull up a blank. I don't remember. Gonna look into this later, but more importantly, if you have my gun, you have the backpack that was stuck to me, right? Yes. Can I have the medic gear in it? I need to change my bandages and put more disinfectant on it. She shrugs before leaving the room, annoyingly taking the gun and laptop with her. Well, she's no Akira, but at least she has sense. Briefly wondering if she's perhaps bluffing about the field in her mind, I consider testing it before deciding that I'm in enough pain, and even if the field wasn't there, I'm in no condition to fight these ladies. Loudmouth. Not sure if I should call her that anymore. She is definitely the most dangerous. At least she has killed before. Shorty seems the easiest to sway. She got dragged into this, and she wants out. She must be a good friend to stick with Satsuki this far. Satsuki, on the other hand. Either she's someone who took a chance, in which case logic could possibly get her to call the cops on me, or she's like me and is a vengeful person that won't let me go. The second option is what I'm scared of. If Satsuki decides F'd it, then I am done like dinner. A couple minutes later, Loudmouth comes back with my med kit and new clothing. She throws it to me, not wanting to get too close to the field. Thanks, I say as I start undoing the bandages around my stomach, only to blink as she watches with rapt attention. See something you like? Not yet, she replies without a hint of a joke. You're selling a story of being some type of spy, and I assume if there's any truth to that, then there'd be some type of scars. What if I said I was a himhar or have never been wounded? I'd say you were bullshitting. If you were that good, you wouldn't be in this position. I grumble while undoing the band-aids. Professionals mess up too. FING Mexico, for example. Alright, second time my mind's brought up some trip to Mexico I can't remember. That means something. What's that scar? She asks, pulling me away from my thoughts and pointing to a welt below my kidney. I'm surprised she could tell which scars were older, since they were blending in with the black and purple mural that was my body. Prison shank. This one. Gunshot. That fancy one in the shape of a circle? That's a brand. What type? SLV marker. You were SLV? For about a week. Can we not talk about it? Alright. Oh, that one with the crack pattern. Enemy quirk? Villain? Enemy that wasn't a hero. Wouldn't really call him a villain. What about the arm? Mina. Pinky? That's her hero name, yes. When did she do that? During your capture? No, during my escape. I rubbed the wound. Thanks for changing the bandages on that, by the way. Didn't need you bleeding on the floor. Thankfully, she's quiet while I change clothing and apply antibiotic cream. Who is Jackson? I freeze at her question. There are a handful of ways that she could know that name, and 7/10 of them lead to one of us dying. For a moment, I just stare at her, gauging her expression before continuing my work. How do you know that name? You were muttering in your sleep something about Jackson, Bastion, and Mexico. For a moment, I'm completely befuddled. I shouldn't be able to talk about Jackson unless I focus on him. It's a semi-mental block he puts on every student to prevent slip-ups. The same situation as Bastion. Once is by chance, twice is coincidence. This makes 3, and that's a pattern. Did I say anything else? Not that I heard. I feel a smile inching up my face. This had to be a message. I can't think of any other reason mental blocks would become undone like this. Jackson is most likely trying to contact me. Since he hasn't talked to me in my dreams or just projects messages in my mind, that means that he's still far away. Considering that this hasn't happened before probably means Jackson is somewhere in the right side of Europe and might have finally reconnected with my mind. Still can't remember the trip to Mexico, but it must be him giving me a hint since he hasn't talked to me yet. My team might be trying to contact me, or at least tell me something. At her look I shrug, which she takes as a can't say anymore. I finish replacing my bandages without feeling an instance of embarrassment when I change my clothing. I need to sleep now. You're going to sleep here? Now, she asks in surprise as I go into a meditating stance. Shouldn't you be figuring out how to prove your innocence? I hope someone gives me a hint. Hopefully it can convince you of my innocence. Or best case, it might be Jackson telling me to sit tight while they finally send someone to help. I close my eyes and cross my legs, going into a meditation pose and trying to force myself to be calm. After a couple minutes, I sigh. Can you leave? I can feel your eyes on me, and it's not helping me concentrate. I'm supposed to watch you. It annoys me that she sounds so smug too. She knew I couldn't get out of this field. She just likes making me feel unsettled. I sigh and turn so my back is facing her and return to trying to concentrate. I think I've mentioned the vault before. Probably something along the lines of I have to check the vault for that or put that in the vault, so let me explain what the vault is in more detail. The vault is a mental visualization practice and is one of the first lessons Jackson taught us. For lack of a better term, it is a mental space to put it, stuff you can't handle, B, things you don't want to have defenseless in your mind, or C, yourself, if you want to examine/experience a memory in greater detail. Someone dies halfway through a mission? Put the emotions in the vault till you can deal with them. Something effed up happens and you don't want it rattling around your brain? Put that sheet in the vault. Some mental quirk users skimming your mind? If they can't read past surface thoughts, then they won't find anything in the vault. You can even relive dreams in the vault if you're good enough with it. Now, the vault isn't all powerful. It depends on your mental fortitude. Bad enough memories can, for lack of better words, break out of the vault. And when they do, that sheet gets sent into the forefront of your mind. Apparently something like the vault is a natural thing that all people have, but most people never train with it or in our case, have someone with a quirk that can enhance and advance their access to it. Welp, time for a trip down memory lane. I start to take deep breaths, slow my heartbeat, and clear my mind. After some time, I feel my mind shift inward, away from my injured body. I move my mind away from the outside and go as far into myself as I could until I didn't even feel my own heartbeat. Darkness is all I saw, which was expected. Seeing something in the vault is the same as imagining something in your head. You can't see it, but you can see it. In the darkness of my mind, imaginary orbs of different colors appear. Most of them are the size of basketballs, but there are some that are as large as horses. All of them are memories, or in some cases, collections of memories I decide not to think about or put in a safe place. After who knows how long of just sitting there, I let out a mental sigh. I hope that someone is waiting to give me a message. Even if Jackson couldn't for some reason, the Academy has other ways to contact someone. Hell, there is someone that could talk in dreams in my class. That brought up the fact that I might not be deep enough for that person to contact me. The vault was basically hardcore daydreaming, but I would rather not completely fall asleep in my current condition since it's not someone trying to contact me, since then I won't be able to wake myself up. Mental moving forward, I start to look for the memories that I placed here. A main weakness of the vault is that it puts you in your feelings, and it has a habit of pulling you in. Depending on how much is in there and how intense it is, you could spend hours just reliving your past. It's a good way to gain closure, I guess, but I don't really have the time. Avoiding any thought of my childhood or early teenage years, I start looking into some of Jackson's harsher lessons, brushing my mind into them as lightly as I can so I don't get dragged in. Poison detection, information gathering, intimidation, all useful stuff I used in the pit, but not what I'm looking for. First day back in Japan. Didn't realize I had put that one here. Slowly pushing the memory away, I let a thought flow into the vault Mexico. I feel buried memories shift as some of my memories related to that subject are pushed forward. Not exactly a search function, anything too buried or that my mind doesn't make the connection wouldn't be moved there. Also, the case where my mind can sense a connection I don't remember. At first, the only memories I really get are lessons in school, which started to attract some of my other school memories, which I really didn't want to get involved in. After the third time pushing away a memory where Sato had been talking about a movie that took place in Mexico while I was staring at a girl's, but I'm afraid that it's either too deep or that Jackson put a code phrase that would stop me from remembering it at all. I'm about to say F it and go ask Loudmouth to bring me some sleeping pill when I feel a tug to certain memories. Turning my attention, I focus on a memory pushed a bit farther back from the selected pile. This is a fresher memory, so this one is more likely to be what I need. Selecting the memory, I dip a mental toe in to see what I'm looking at. An explosion rocks the side of the plane, sending everyone bouncing around the soon-to-be crashing aircraft. You guys got to jump now. The pilot says calmly, as if we aren't all about to die. Are you kidding? I shout, tightening my seat belt as a muty-colored feather the size of a truck zooms past the plane, leaving a gash in its wing. The metal folds in on itself, fixing the damage, but I doubt the pilot could do that forever. I'm not kidding. I can't dodge these things with you guys in the plane, and you guys have a mission, now jump. You're 7 miles from the drop zone. You gotta get us close dash this time. The feather went through the plane, nearly clipping my nose. Rainbow color material stronger than any diamond cuts through steel like warm cheese. There's a frightening second when the halves of the plane starts to separate where I really start to regret my life choices. The pilot points a hand. Instantly, the metal of the plane warps and reaches for its other half, grabbing it and pulling it closer as we fall from the sky. As metal once again fuses together, I check to see if I said myself. Thankfully not. Do you really think this plane is safer than the ground right now? The pilot screams as she pulls the joystick, sending us arcing into the sky. It's away from whatever is shooting these feathers at us, so yes. I scream as the force pushes me back in the chair. The pilot, apparently fed up with my attitude, turns and points her finger at me. Instantly, the seat belt of my seat comes undone and the chair bucks me to my feet. Look, I know it's your first big test at the academy, But I'm not dying because you're scared of heights, so get off the plane in the next 10 seconds, or you're gonna experience Mach 20 forces. I'm scared of the F-plane cutting arrows, not heights. I scream just in time for the plane to start dog rolling below an energy blast or something. Whatever. Just FNG jump, is my response. I cling to my seat as the pilot jerks her joystick down, causing the plane to dive under a black energy wave of some kind. Yeah, F going out there, Jackson can see my D. My thoughts are interrupted by a metallic hand grabbing my shoulder. I got him. Bastion lifts me up. Come on, Mineta, we got to go. No, we don't. Wendigo's a big girl, she can take care of he F-da. My well-placed argument is interrupted by Bastion spinning and throwing me, sending me flying through the closed plane door and out into open night air. My last thought before gravity reminds me it existed is that he didn't give me a parachute. Jerking away from the memory, I blink as it reconnects, giving me context to what I just saw. It was one of my first midterm tests for Jackson, a rescue mission in Mexico that went to sheet real fast, which means that Jackson must have been the one to lock it up, which also means Jackson is probably trying to give me a hint of how to get out of this situation. Probably not info, since Bastion isn't the stealthy type of person, so it's probably a way to get out of my current arrangement. It's pretty much my only lead, I think, as I open up the collections of memories and start skimming them. Might as well see what I can find. Moving past the memories of the landing and beaching out Bastion for throwing me out the plane, I search for any memories focused on escaping. Help me. My voice reaches a new octave as I struggle to push off the giant tongue that was wrapped around my leg. I could probably get it off with both hands, but one is focused on stopping the basketball-sized teeth smashing into my feet. You got this, man, Bastion's voice comes from the phone. In the background, I could hear a female giggling before he turned it off. This man getting lucky with a girl he just met while I'm being eaten alive one floor below? F you, is the last thing I say before I'm pulled into the mouth. I pull myself from the memory breathing. Downside of the vault is that those memories are always fresh, no matter how old they are, plus the acidic saliva that thing had is giving me bad memories. Alright, let's keep going. I let out a laugh as the man with the brick head brought a metal cane down on Bastion's face. It sparked as it makes contact, and from his grunt, Bastion is at least feeling the impact. Who knew out of the two of us, I would be the better one when it came to torture resistance? You're enjoying this, aren't you? Bastion spits out a tooth as he hangs, chained to the ceiling. Of course not, I say. This dude hits like a baby. I can't get anything I shudder and jerk, letting out as the electric current flows through my body, courtesy of the taser tip side of Brickhead's cane that he presses into my nipples. That, I lick my lips, had some kick in it. You seem kind of into that, Bastion says, grunting as Brickhead turns the taser point on him as well. No, I state, gasping for breath. That was intense, but not what I would call pleasant. Then why do you make the, he let out sound? Because we're getting effing tortured. I'm getting tortured. You're effing getting off right now. No, I'm not, I state as Brickhead approaches me again, clicking my boot together. I heard the toe blade come out before I WHP my foot forward, sending it sailing into the forehead of this a-hole. He stumbles back, blood coming from the light gash that the knife left. Did you think that would work? Bastion asks with a dull expression. His head is FNG rock. I was hoping. At least I'm effing doing something. You're hung up there like a pig while I'm the only one trying to get out of a. The last bit comes out as a shriek as Brickhead tases me again. Oh, what? Are you mad at me? The knife didn't even go an inch in. I wait. What are you doing? My eyes widen as Brickhead turns the head on his cane, causing the tip to give an audible hum. Oh, is all I had to say before he jabs the cane into my crotch. I pull back my head and let out a cry that even I feel uncomfortable about. Brickhead pulls the cane back and gives me a particular look. He can't understand the language we've been speaking to each other, Russian, but he gives Bastion an odd look and motions to me like the F is wrong with this guy. I'm not into this, I say, breathing with flushed cheeks as I change to Spanish so he could understand me. Yes, you are, Bastion yells. Also turning to Spanish, Brickhead is examining his cane, probably to see how much juice is in it. I lean over to see and giggle, actually FING giggle. It's 180 million volts. It's weaker than Denki in second year. Brickhead apparently doesn't like my laughing, 'cause he decides just to hit me in the stomach with the head of the cane. That isn't pleasant in any way, but it at least gets him close enough. With that thought, one of my orbs falls off my head, which I kick into the man's face. Why didn't you do that sooner? Bastion asks, watching the man try to pull the orb off as I dislocate my thumbs and fall from my chains. Wanted to see what I could learn. Well, you learned you were MST, so was it worth it? That wasn't a no. Jump up on you own, and die, I say, taking Brickhead's cane from where it had dropped, dodging a wild swing from the suffocating man. Alright, so far this memory is proving to be not helpful at all. Come on, there has to be something here. I skim over 3 days of memories until I finally find something interesting. 50 caliber punch. I roll out of the way as Bastion goes soaring over me, smashing his fist into nameless grunt number you can imagine from the name of the move what happened to his head. Watch it. I growl, only to curse and drop when I heard 12-gauge roundhouse come from his lips. The grunt I made as I fell to the ground was followed by a series of booms and then by the smell of fresh blood. I took the relieved silence as a sigh that it's safe to get up, though sadly someone's foot decides to help me by smashing into my face with enough force to force me back to my feet. You are too big to be this fast, I mutter before ducking under something that hissed by my ear. Crossing my arms, I managed to pull up grape skin just in time for some bullets to slam into my forearms. Black Eye, which was what we've been calling the latest 6.5 feet tall problem, hisses as the gun clicks empty before pulling out the biggest of all knives and taking strides towards me. Drawing the cane I took from Brickhead from my back, I twirl it to test its weight and start walking to meet him. Ever heard of quick awakening? Bastion punctuates his question with the shattering of a rib cage as his foot makes contact with some poor sap. I look at him, more shocked by the question than the violence at this point, before I have to focus on the knife heading for my eyes. Are you giving a lesson right now? I yell, deflecting another knife strike with my new cane. Yep, and if you don't answer my question, I'll tell Jackson you were being a little beach at the start of the test. Hole says that all without looking at me, not even flinching when a throwing knife bounces of his forearm before he ducks under an energy ball thrown by another grunt who he sends flying out of the alleyway with a 1-inch punch. God D, he makes it seem like talking while fighting is easy. Fine. It's when your quirk levels up. What about it? I ask, ducking the next swing before shoving my new cane-pointed side into the extended arm of my assailant. The black-eyed man falls back silent and looks at the wound that seems to be dripping a golden liquid instead of blood. Oh great, it's gonna be one of those days. What if you could trigger it at whim? Bastion asks before vanishing with a booming and then a whooshing sound. Flipping over Black Eye's punch, I get to watch Bastion's obsidian black boots burst from his chest with a gush of liquid. What is this guy made of? No idea, I respond, watching Bastion vanish again with another boom and appear beside me. He is still smoking that goddamn cigar he had taken from Brickhead. I want to know how he kept the DMN thing in his mouth the whole time. Use your ball on him. The motherfucker is made of liquid. Why don't you go through him? Because I don't want to get stuck in him. What if he's acidic? What if look out? He shoves me out of the way as a wave of golden liquid slams into him. Oh shit. Dropping an orb on the ground and jumping on it instantly, I'm sent soaring through the air. Throwing a orb on an approaching telephone pole, I kick off it cartwheeling the air before landing on a roof a couple yards back from the alleyway where we were just fighting. Bastion, you good? A moment later, Bastion appears right by me again, though not unscathed. Arg, what is this stuff? He asks, wiping the liquid off and spitting a large amount of it from his mouth. Dude tried to force himself down my throat. Don't most men do that when they first meet you? Shut up. Bleg, dude tastes like olive oil. Not the good shit either, that olive oil people used to give to their kids for medicine. Where was this dude when we were in Italy? I joke before seeing a wave of what we now know is olive oil flowing up the building wall towards us. Got your lighter? I hold out a hand and grin once he puts the silver box in my hand. Bye-bye, Black Eye, I say as I drop the lighter in the mass of oil. You FING dumbass. You gave me the lighter. You blew him up. I expected him to burn, not even explode. Bastion glares at me for a moment before lighting another cigar with a snap of his finger and putting it in his mouth. Whatever. Where the hell is Wendigo? I want to be back on the plane before the rest of the cartel knows we're here. He's hoping for a lot. If I was that pilot, I'd be long gone by now. If the cartel doesn't know we're here at this point, then they're stupid. I don't even know why he mad the explosion only hurt his clothing. I'm pretty sure I have second-degree burns. What were you saying about awakening, by the way? I asked as we returned to the alleyway where the fight had started. Not because I really cared, I just didn't trust a pissy Bastion to watch my back. Oh yeah, he says, already forgetting that he was set at me. Awakening happens when you are in the fear of death, right? He asks, kicking over bodies to see if any were alive. It's basically emotional stress mixed with an immediate threat. Intense stress, but you're right, I state, seeing a batch of blonde hair smashed under a pile of bodies. Sheet, I think the bullet broke one of her antlers. She's gonna be said. I feel her pulse to see how far she is along. She was taken out of the fight quickly with a lucky bullet to the head. Considering how her body is twitching, she's gonna get back up soon. Grabbing a dead body, I pull it on top of her just in case she woke up hungry. I doubt he would mind on account of being dead. So, how would you activate that on a whim? Normal people, I assume, could use some type of drag to stress them out and then get into a fight. At my raised eyebrow he explains, in theory it should work. If you don't die. Stress is stress after all. You said normal people, I state, turning away as Wendigo wakes up and starts to gnaw on the corpse I dropped on her. How would heroes or we do it? Well, heroes will just jump into fight after fight until one does the trick. We could and will do the same thing, but we also have Jackson, who we both know can make us feel and think in any way he wants. Well, not any way, but I get your point. It's sort of true. While Jackson couldn't really puppet someone unless they let him, making someone set off or suicidal wasn't outside his range. Now that I think about it, we might be able to do it ourselves with our vaults. We can enhance our own stress whenever we FNG want. You mean by reliving any tragic stuff we have in there? It can't be that easy. Easy isn't the word I'd use for it. You have to be good at using the vault and then have enough stressful memories to work with. You also need to have the mental fortitude to keep shoving your mind into trauma from your past life. It actually might be easy in theory for you. He looks me up and down like a judgy girlfriend before nodding his head as if to confirm his theory. Think about it. Most people get over their trauma. Even people that have a fully complete vault sooner or later have to deal with their sheet, but you can't. You're a man-child. You hold on to that sheet forever. I briefly consider shooting him in the shin for the comment, but I decide that running these guys' pockets was more important. And? You're one of the best vault users, at least of our year. Bastion explains it like it should be obvious. Which means you can hold that sheet in the longest time and save it up for something like that. You can think of something from 5 years ago and be just as sad as you were the day it happened, which would give me more emotional stress to try and force an awakening? Bingo, though I assume there'll be a point where trying to induce an evolution would make you less stressed, and then it won't happen and you'll be FE'd. Wait, then shouldn't you have not told me about this theory, since it now gives me an expectation of that? Bastion stares at me for a moment before smacking his forehead. I shouldn't have said that. Don't worry, just put this conversation in the vault. Beach, I'm putting this whole trip in the vault. I almost got eaten alive. Twice. Oh, don't be a baby. It was hard for me to. You barely got hurt. I tapped the cane against his metallic skin. And you discovered so much about yourself. My retort is interrupted by a ground-shaking roar. I briefly look at Wendigo to see if that was her, but she's still enjoying her meal, her blonde-brown hair starting to grow as her quirk takes effect. Which means that that's probably. Oh no, Quetzalcoatl's mad. You think he knows where we are? A red feather the size of a car comes falling from the sky, its pointed side coming down at us like a missile. Yes. Letting go of the memory, I growl. This could have several meanings, only a couple being good. 1. Jackson could be giving me a warning that he's gonna trigger a stress trip to try and awaken me, though that doesn't make sense, since wouldn't I be less stressed if I saw it coming? It also means that Jackson is in range to mentally affect me to that extent, which makes me question how close he actually is and how upset I will be when I find out how long he's been that close. On the other hand, he might be letting me remember that story because he wants me to try and trigger my own awakening, in which case, F him. That was his hint? Get stronger? Yeah, that makes sense for a Jackson lesson, but I'm not actually that stressed, and even if my quirk did evolve, it would have to be big cause I'm pretty sure my body can't take much more of this. No backup for a year in a sheet bag of a prison, and the first help they bring is, hey, remember that conversation you had about how you're such a petty motherfucker that you could possibly force a quirk evolution? Yeah, do that. I'm feeling more stress about this than I do about being captured. I sigh and rub my face, briefly surprised when I realize that I feel both hands till I remember this is a mental thing. Okay, so it's not impossible. I guess I might have just evolved my quirk when fighting MT Lady. Is there a cooldown? Shit, what if I can't do it again since I've already done it? Damn it, Bastion, why didn't you talk more about this? The idea of basically trying and making myself stress to force an evolution isn't appealing to me, but it's pretty much my only plan, which is annoying because in other cases, I have escaped more complicated prisons. Sadly enough, a year of malnutrition f's up the temple that is your body. Damn, if I was in my prime, well, I wouldn't have been captured in the first place, would have just made 4v4 compact grapes and FNG flew out of Yokohama. Opening my eyes in the physical world again, I blink as I realize I'm in a completely different place. Workout machines, a mini fridge, and a TV on the wall. Turning my head, I notice a note by me and grab it and quickly read it, letting out a chuckle. Satsuki's sister came over. Apparently she's been assigned to the task force to capture you and would like to stay with family while here. Satsuki put you on my plate till she's gone. Your med pack is behind you. Feel free to have anything in the fridge or use the TV. Fair warning, my quirk is still in effect, and I had my friend put her fields in front of the door and window, and the walls are brick, so don't bother. From, the girl you need to convince not to kill you. Welp, I must have been deep in the vault if she was able to pick me up and drop me off here. Sheet, I wish I was awake so I could have seen what Satsuki's address is. A quick exploration around the basement showed one room, a bathroom, and the main room that is the workout area. A test of the bathroom window proves that she isn't lying about said fields. After waking up again, I decide that earlier thoughts of Loudmouth having probably done something like this before was probably true, either that or she thought this through way more than Satsuki did. The door out is at the top of the stairs, so she had Shorty put a field in front of said stairs so I couldn't wait behind the door and attack her with something. Medkit doesn't have any hard drags besides painkillers, so I can't drag her either. Best option would be to smash a weight into the brick wall and try to break it down. Considering that Loudmouth has my gun, might be able to hear the sounds her quirk mutes, and is the only one that is currently even close to believing my story, best not to BSS her off till I have to. Plus, the more time I have, the more I heal and the more my quirk recovers. Therefore, once again, I'm in a state of waiting for something to happen and recover from my last but beating. After stitching my wounds over again, I decide to just go into the vault and see if there's anything else I could use. After rewatching the Mexican trip a fifth FING time, I came to conclusion that Jackson is probably telling me to handle this myself, F-. Oh, and in other news, the city of Yokohama rejoices as the number 3 hero arrives, and he brought friends. Momo looks better, though you could see the shiner I gave her during my skip. Mina looks absolutely overjoyed, waving for the camera. If I didn't need to keep watching, I would have smashed the TV. Great. Great, I mutter, downing a protein shake and another painkiller as I glare at the screen. I need to be out of this town FANG a month ago. On the plus side, Bigfoot survived me lighting him up, so at least a real murder isn't on my rap sheet. It's concerning me that Tsuyu isn't with the group. It could mean she's going vigilante with this, which is terrifying because she knows how to hide a body. Or it could mean she's part of a stealthy task force assignment to go after me, which isn't fun. F-. I basically spend the rest of the day doing light stretches and searching the vault for anything FNG useful I may have forgotten. Day 5. This basement is reminding me too much of prison for my liking. It's nicer, obviously, but there's still the fear someone might be coming to attack me at any moment. At least in the pit, it was clear who was going to try and shiv me again, or if someone put rat poison in my food. Loudmouth could open the door and shoot me, and I couldn't do much to stop her. Speaking of my captors, I try to see if the zones were still up and am once again introduced to unbearable pain. After trying to use a painkiller and finding out it did nothing, I'm pretty sure it's a mental pain rather than some physical force. The brief idea that the zones might be affecting the mental locks occurs to me, but honestly I have no idea how to confirm that, and if that's true, that means Jackson still isn't helping me, which is for so many reasons not good. Honestly, I would have stopped watching the TV, just seeing Mina makes my stump hurt, but I need information. I'm surprised to discover that MT Lady and Jiroda were getting interviews. What do you think about the backlash you have gotten for allowing Mineta to escape? MT Lady fidgets with her hair at the reporter's question. I think it's deserved. I underestimated him because of his injuries, and because of that, he got away. I have to disagree with you, lady. Jiroda cuts in. You handled the situation perfectly. From the knowledge that we have, quirk awakening can happen randomly and is impossible to predict. Grape skin has been in my arsenal for years, I think grumpily. So either my quirk did evolve, or I did better at hiding it than I thought. And what of you, Wildman? The report asks Jiroda using his hero name. Did you underestimate him as well? I didn't, Jiroda answers. I engaged the villain in a way that wouldn't put civilian lives in danger, and he took advantage of that. He rubs his stomach and I have to snort. My whole body is black and blue, and this man is complaining about what was basically little worse than BBs to him. That basically how the interview went, mostly with the reporter giving MT Lady CRP for not smashing me into the ground and Jiroda defending her. I am honestly about to turn it off when the reporter actually asks an important question. Will the heroes be allowed to use more drastic measures because of Mineta's stance as a death row inmate? Of course not, Lady exclaims. Heroes are only enforcers of the law, just like cops. More than the cops, even. These powers come with responsibility. Mineta was not a current threat to any civilians, and his quirk doesn't pack enough lethality to define him as a threat that requires lethal force. And what of the people he hurts now? Wouldn't that be your fault? Killing villains is a slippery slope. It's the same reason you don't see cops gunning down villains in the street. It is not their place or our place, it's the government's place to decide whether or not this villain needs to die. So you're saying if the government gave you permission to kill him, you would have? I would do what is necessary to keep civilians safe. I guess my time with Jackson has taught me that sometimes putting people down is necessary. The argument of taking the law in your hands versus the government not doing enough has been talked up and down for centuries, though I would have been happy if it had never happened to me. At least that confirms my thought. Unless I'm doing something stupid, heroes will probably not try to flat out end me, which makes it odd that IQ did. I was a running target, and neither she nor the cops should have lit me up like that. IQ could be a possible link. Then, though it is possible she decided that driving a bike into a hotel is enough to warrant deadly force. So possible targets are Mina and IQ, since both have skirted the rules of using lethal force on a fleeing villain, but that could be an issue of personality, so I can't be sure yet. This is circumstantial evidence at best. I'll have to see if any of them work with the HPSC before I start pointing fingers. Watching the ending of the interview, I feel a little bad for MT Lady. Say what you will about her start, but she stuck with us during all that sheet with OFA. I wouldn't have ruined her retirement party if I didn't have to. On the other hand, she spiked me like a volleyball, so I don't feel too much regret. The sound of the door opening wakes me from my meditation. Opening an eye, I blink as 3 familiar faces appear in the doorway. See you out looking for me? Satsuki glares at Loudmouth, who is back in her all-black outfit. You told him? Does it matter that he knows? She asks. Satsuki glares at her but doesn't seem to have a retort. So what's the verdict? Loudmouth throws something at me. Catching the black blur with my hand, I briefly grin that my reflexes are recovering, then open my hand to see what she threw at me. My flash drive. So did you show them my video? And the photos on your phone? And what about the other thing we spoke about? I pointed out the little things that didn't make sense. Wonder how much that means. Doesn't really matter, I guess I barely gave her any hints to begin with. And? I prompt. We're gonna let you go. Shorty says, nodding her head. I blink, then blink again before slowly looking at Loudmouth. At her nod of confirmation, I turn to Satsuki, only to curse her diamond frog face. I couldn't tell what she was thinking. Why? She chickened out. Loudmouth points to Shorty. And Satsuki doesn't think she could hide it from her sister that she killed a man. I never wanted to kill him in the first place. Shorty exclaims. If I had to assume, she's the type of person that doesn't like violence of any kind. Funny since how her quirk seems the perfect way to stop a villain. So you're just gonna let me go? I raise an eyebrow. No. Satsuki shakes her head. We're putting a bag over your head and driving you out somewhere. Or I will be. I have to erase the evidence of you being in my house, Loudmouth states before pointing at Shorty. And she needs to forget this ever happened. So, I'm gonna be alone in a car with Satsuki? Don't get any ideas, she warns. Take your own advice. I don't trust you. Can't Loudmouth take me? Is that me? Loudmouth asks, giving Shorty a minor glare when she giggles. Yes. Why can't she take me? Satsuki took you, she's returning you. It's her responsibility. Then can't you come with us in the car as well? Loudmouth sighs. Sure, whatever. Shorty makes a hand motion, which I assume is to move the field. Are you gonna come up calmly or what? Satsuki asks, hope in her voice, probably hoping that she would get to stomp me out for being unruly. I have no reason to start trouble if you're letting me go, I state, picking up my medical bag and standing up. Walking up the stairs, I turn around so Loudmouth can put a bag over my head. I hear a click of the HNCFFS and feel Shorty grab my arm before realizing that there's nowhere to connect it. Put it through the belt hoops of my breathes, I offer, which she complies with a silent thank you. I let out a whoop of surprise as someone lifts me onto their shoulders. You're lighter than I thought you'd be, Loudmouth mutters. I'm not even 5 feet tall, what did you expect? A couple of minutes of walking, and I feel myself get thrown into a trunk. My backpack? In there with you, Loudmouth says. Though I have your gun and knives at the front with me. Fair enough. Goodbye, Shorty. I hear a cry of offense. You out of everyone here shouldn't be talking about being short. It's because I'm short that I can talk about being short, but anyway, let's get this show on the road, chop chop. I feel the trunk close and the car start. Sighing in relief, I dislocate my thumb to take the handcuff off. Well, that wasn't so bad, I think with a grin. Guess I didn't need Jackson's help after all. That thought brings me some worry. Jackson not omniscient, but the fact that he had that memory popped up at this time means he's seeing something I'm missing or sensed something my subconscious picked up on, and that's worrying me. It is possible that the Get Stronger lesson is supposed to come into effect after the girls release me? That makes a type of sense. I'm left to ponder that thought for the next 15 minutes, then 30, then how far are you taking me? Silence. Hello. Silence. That's not good. The car stops. Not good either. I wait to hear the car door open, but the only thing I do hear is the truck being unlocked. Opening it, I hold my backpack in front of me in case Satsuki decides to attack. It is night, but the full moon gives enough light to illuminate my surroundings. Looking around, I can see only an empty road surrounded by woods. Leaving the truck, I look around. Woods, and more words, no sign of civilization anywhere. If I didn't know better, I would think I was in the middle of the wilderness. I wasn't even aware there were woods this large in Yamamoto. Where are we? Your grave, Satsuki replies, leaving the car with my gun in her hands. I dive around the corner of the car but don't hear any gunshots. Oh, I'm not gonna do it. I hear her grunt and see my gun flying to the woods. At first nothing happens, then I hear rustling. A second later, something comes flying from the wood to my left. Rolling, I barely have a moment to recognize the item is a giant staple before another one comes. You see, something you said stuck with me, she says, watching as I roll away from the projectile. You're right, I don't know what I'm doing. I've never killed someone before. I probably would have made some mistakes, so I did what any student should do when they need help with something. I called someone with experience. Almost on cue, a spear made of an orange stone slams where I was just standing. A second later, a form appears on it. Orange hair and yellow eyes are all I can make out before she spins off the spear like her heeled foot smashing into my face and sending me spinning across the ground. Vigilantes are back in fashion. People don't trust heroes the same way anymore. Loudmouth, I yell, grabbing a giant staple that I had just jumped to avoid. Ripping it out of the ground, I straighten it out with my foot and use it as a mini knife against the spear user. Don't bother, she's asleep. I don't know how you managed to get her to believe you're getting framed, but I know what you are, Mineta, and I won't let anyone else be hurt by you. I roll under Orange Spear's leg, stabbing her calf with the giant staple. She hisses but falls back before I can do more damage. This time, a giant of a woman with a crowbar engages me, almost smashing me into pulp if I hadn't noticed her behind me. Suddenly, I feel a sharp pain as something is jabbed into my foot. Before I can even scream, I feel the tendril drag me chest deep into the ground. Well, I'll be, a new voice replies as a figure came from the bushes. We expected this to be a trick by the heroes. Guess there are those that want change after all. Tilting my head, I turn to see who's talking. Tactile clothing with multiple knives with a red and black theme. Looking around, I realize all my assailants are wearing these garments. If that made me feel worried, the fact that all these people are females is also terrifying. You're some type of man-hating vigilante group, I assume, I ask, struggling to pull myself from the ground. The tendril tightens, causing me to hiss. We're more than just a vigilante group, the one says. She walks closer, and that gives me a chance to notice that a brown tendril is coming from her back into the ground. I'd bet some good money that's the thing in my foot right now. We are the daughters of Stain, and we will be erasing your stain of this world tonight. Bloody fantastic, I'm gonna even you die. FNG Stain. Dude killed some heroes and FNG became the Jesus of hero hunters. He wasn't even that big in the grand scheme of shit, but his words have stuck with this generation. And of course, the FING DOS, out of the three main groups that worship the fucker, they have to be the worst. So the DOS isn't actually a main group. They're a branch of one called the SUS Children of Stain, which is the most violent out of the groups. DIFUS is the Batmans of vigilante groups, then the DOS are the Kristen Gilberts. All of them are women obviously, so you know shit's about to get fed up. They mainly focus on male heroes that abuse their powers in the worst way, RPSS, groomers, extortionists, people like that, but unlike the jury who gets information and sends it to the cops, or the stained who just shoot the guilty party and be done with it, they make it hurt and they make videos. Castrations, waterboarding, all that black box bullshit you can think of. Now, some of you are thinking that's not so bad that you would be wrong, but some of you would be thinking that, so let me say it simply. In the triad of extremist groups born from the philosophy of Stain and extremist, the COS are seen as extremists, and within that group, the DOS are seen as extremists to them, meaning I'm fed right in the down under. Satsuki, you're making a mistake. I yell out, not even bothering to cover the fear in my voice. I'm innocent. I don't deserve this. You don't have to do this. I'm not doing anything, she replies, handing Crowbar Lady my knives. I was never here, but if it makes you feel better, Mineta, I'll tell Loudmouth that I let you go scot-free. It'll stop her from feeling guilty. She turns to look at me, and the smile she has will forever taint how I think of Tsuyu. I hope it hurts, fucker. You deserve more pain than they can ever give you. F you, I scream as I thrash in the mud. I reach for an orb, but a staple pins my arm to the ground. Satsuki, I'm innocent. I'm effing innocent. You can't let them do this. Even if I wanted to stop them, Mineta, it's too late. I'm not involved. She shrugs. Actually effing shrugs, like she isn't throwing me to the wolves. What are you gonna do with him? She asks as Crowbar Girl grabs my shoulders, lifting me from the ground. There's a clearing just a little ways into the wood. Tendril Girl points. It has a pond. We're gonna see how many times we can drown and resuscitation him. Jackson. I scream, nearly hysterical. At this point, I'm writhing in Crowbar's grip, but nothing is working. Bastion. Wendigo. Anyone, guys, help? Well, we might as well get started, Tendril Girl says, talking over my screaming. You should get going, you won't want to see what happens next. Satsuki nods, giving me one last smile before getting into her car and driving away. Satsuki! I scream. The last sight I have of her is her driver's plate moving off into the distance. They don't even bother to stop me from screaming when they walk me into the pond. I won't lie, I scream. Jackson would probably be disappointed in me throwing all my training away, but I'm not ready. I'm not ready to die, not like this, not for something I didn't do, not before I avenge Denki. Crowbar lady drops me at the edge of the water. Before I could crawl away, I feel the tendril dig into my leg, dragging me deeper into the water. Thankfully, I cover my mouth before I went under, but I shouldn't have bothered. It's just gonna make it longer for me. As the murky water surrounds me, I pull at the tendril around my leg. At that moment, I could have hated this woman more than Satsuki. She held me so that my body is only a centimeter away from the water's surface, keeping fresh life-breathing air only a fingertip away, which was more than far enough for me to drown in. I fought and fought, but like a bug being covered in amber, there was nothing I could do. My lungs burn in pain. It felt as if I had breathed in needles, followed by a dragon trying to inflate me like a balloon. Finally, after what seems like hours, my mouth opens and fills with water. My last thought before I black out is about a certain trip to Mexico. Day 7. I knock on the door, feeling incredibly cold. Which is odd, it's fall, after all, though at least it isn't raining. That doesn't really matter, since I'm soaking wet anyway. At least the water keeps the blood from crusting over, which I'm thankful for. If you asked me how long it took me to walk my way back here, I wouldn't be able to tell you, though the dull ache in my feet tells me it must have been an hour or two. The devil must have blessed me if he allowed me to make it back here unmolested. I wonder what Todoroki would have said if he saw me. Honestly, he probably would just kill me where I stand, because I think I'm already dead. Hello? Satsuki Azui asks as she opens the door. Never have I ever been as thankful for my height as I am today, because it takes her a second to look down and notice me. She freezes. I honestly can't blame her. I mean, how often is it that you see a dead man? Well, I'm looking at a dead woman, but she hasn't seemed to realize it. She certainly looks comfy. She's wearing snuggly pajamas, the type that you wear on the weekend when you're about to binge movies. Honestly, they're a pretty pair. I could imagine being killed and worse. Honestly, I'm surprised that I can still get angry. I thought my rage burned up back at the pond. Don't get me wrong, I'm still gonna kill her, but I thought it would be cold and unattached. But I guess Satan saved me some rage, because when I see how relaxed and happy she looks, that makes me snap. Fear, the word comes from my coarse lips. I don't know what she was going to say, and to this day I don't care. I lift the crowbar that DOS member so happily dropped for me and bring it down on her face. Her nose crumbles beautifully, and she goes stumbling back into her house. I walk in after her, only pausing to close the door before. For every action retaliate, I say simply before bringing the crowbar on her foot. She falls with a cry, and at that point, I pounce on her. At first I use the crowbar, but that feels too impersonal, like how she was impersonal when she gave me over to those FING fanatics. She wasn't there when they drowned me 6 times and dragged me back from the grave. I feel like I need to be personal. I may not be big, but Jackson taught me to throw a punch, and I don't think I've ever appreciated his teaching more than in that moment. I don't know how long I hit her. Honestly, the only reason I stop is because my lungs can't keep up. I step away from the meat in front of me and fall on my knees and throw up. More water, I think, as I look at the bloodly liquid on the ground. Satsuki, are you okay? I blink as I hear knocking on the door and a familiar voice. Maybe she and Shorty were gonna have a movie night celebrating my murder. Not even caring to be quiet, I grab Satsuki's wallet and keys and jump through the closest window. Gravity takes hold and I land back first onto a rose bush. I don't care about the pain, it can join the line. I hear the door burst open, followed by a scream. I wonder who looks worse, me or her. Either way, bigger things to worry about. Hobbling over to her car, I unlock it and start the ignition. Neighbors are just starting to leave their houses as I back out of the driveway and speed down the street.